yourself and save a little more for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to boost your retirement savings now. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro today.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
All I'm saying is there's a process that has to happen. And I don't know that in year one is when you need to be worrying about how many games you need to get to satisfy the fan base. I don't think that should be part of the equation in year one. I think what we should be interested in on the outside is that he lays a solid foundation that enables the program to grow from there.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket. This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome back, Sunday Rewind. Tom Stevens here, Mike Melby there. And just as I predicted last week about this time, Mike, Nebraska is about to beat Creighton, the number 7 team in the country. You heard me say it last week, right, on the show?
I think that was what you said.
Actually, it's a long ways from being over, but Nebraska is up 44-38. Creighton just hit a 3 and maybe a 4-point play coming for the Jays. So maybe not good news there, and you don't feel comfortable at all when it's Nebraska basketball that you're talking about, but they're up. We're talking about a team that is up.
But I feel comfortable with the way the game has gone. It's ugly. It is flat out ugly basketball, and that's why I'm comfortable with it, because defensively, I don't know that I've ever seen Nebraska play this well.
Yeah, well, we go from ugly to beautiful. Nebraska volleyball is in the Sweet 16 again.
It's 9th or 11th straight year.
11th straight time. John Cook is pretty good when it comes to the NCAA tournament. He is 80, I believe, and 18 as the coach at Nebraska, 92 and 23 overall in the NCAA tournament.
It's not bad.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And let's talk a little Husker volleyball. Tanya Taki, our friend from Nebraska One, calling from Vegas. What are you doing in Vegas?
Yes. You know, it's my birthday weekend, and I ordered tickets to Aerosmith, but as soon as we walked up, they canceled the concert.
Oh, no.
But we're having a great time, and I will take full credit for Nebraska basketball winning today. I bet on Creighton.
Okay.
This is how this goes. Like, my husband was like, hey, we should go bet on the Nebraska Creighton game. And I was like, okay, well, if you want Nebraska to win, bet on Creighton. And so that's what we did. So if we win, it's all because we bet for Creighton.
That you do the opposite. It's the old George Costanza. I've learned that years ago. If you want the Vikings to win, root against them.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I've done for years. But can you bet on Husker volleyball? Were you able to bet on the NCAA tournament?
So we were here last year and during the Final Four, and we could bet on the Final Four games, but they don't have just the NCAA tournament games. Not at the Caesar Sportsbook where we bet. They were saying maybe Westgate had it, but it's fine. We watched some games on TV, and it was great.
Nebraska volleyball wins in 4 sets. It was a little scary against Kansas, but they were able to pull it off. How concerned were you in the 4th set when Nebraska was finally able to finish off KU and move on to the Louisville Regional?
I mean, yeah, anytime you're playing in the NCAA tournament, it's a big deal, and the teams that you're playing against are going to give it your all. And I watched Kansas early on in the season, maybe against Texas. I caught a game on TV, and I was like, wow, they really work hard. They have girls that go for the ball. They have some pretty big hitters. They have the girl from maybe Turkey where she's just, putting in extra effort, and they were scrappy even the games before they played Nebraska, and everybody was like, wow, Kansas is now no slough team. So I think it was good for us to pull out a win, and I think it was pretty commanding the first 2 sets, and I think we just need to get in a rhythm and get some confidence going. I don't know that we have what it takes to be a Final Four team. It's kind of not been our year for playing at the top level. But I think we're right where we should be in the top 16 and competing for a top 8.
And the one thing I want to ask you real quick, I'm going to interrupt. 47-39, Sam Grayson with an and 1 to keep the Huskers up by 8. 6 minutes, 10 seconds to go at the CHI Center up in Omaha. But in that Kansas game, we talked about it a lot, and I think one of the 5-set wins one of the 5-set losses Nebraska had earlier this year, Coach Cook made the comment that if we win set 4, I think we win the game or win the match. Was with the way the momentum have gone against Kansas, would you have been worried had they won that 4th set and had all that momentum going into the 5th?
I mean, yeah, that's the way we do volleyball in general. If you win when I'm coaching, we're playing 3 sets, best 2 out of 3. And if you want to win that second set to go into the third, you want to be the winning team. You want to have the momentum. But what I love about volleyball is every single game starts 0-0. And if we can live our life like that, when you wake up in the morning, it's 0-0, and it's what you want to do with your life to have a great day. And that's the same thing it is with volleyball. Sometimes just resetting to 0 can be what it takes to get a team to switch the momentum. Hey, that wasn't our set. This one is.
Nebraska.
So that's the best thing I like about volleyball is that you're always starting 0-0, no matter if you can lose 25-0 and turn around and win the next set.
Yep. Nebraska moves on to the Sweet 16 at the Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky, where on Friday night, I believe it's Friday night, they play Oregon, 9th-ranked Oregon, Nebraska, number 7, and that they win that game. You would think that they would face Louisville, a number 1 seed, 4th-ranked team in the country. What are they facing if they face Danny Busboom and the Louisville Cardinal?
I mean, we watched that game last night on Hulu, and Louisville is looking really tough. The thing that I had noticed early on in the season when I was talking to you, I was actually in San Diego when I was talking to you last time about Louisville. They just weren't passing really great back then in October, and I really saw some improved passing. They were able to run their middles, and they also got their DeBeer back. She was hurt, had a knee injury early in the season. Obviously, it wasn't an ACL tear or something. It must have been a sprain of some sort, but she's in a brace, but she's jumping and hitting and aggressive, and it's good for their team to have her back. So they're going to be really tough to defend. I know we're one of the best teams in the country in defense, and we're going to need it if we play Louisville. But I watched a little Oregon, and Oregon's a little on fire, so we'll see.
Well, I was just going to ask you about Oregon real quick. I want to give a score update. 49-43, Nebraska over Creighton, 4:40 to play in the second half. So Oregon, that is going to be a tall task. They have been playing super well lately. What do you think needs to happen? Is it simply just do what you do best, Nebraska?
Right. I mean, I think we saw moments of where we were connecting with our middles and our setters are connecting. But, I mean, I think that's been our problem all year is just connecting and having that connection. We have 3 different girls running our setting system. Like, I don't even know why Orr wasn't playing yesterday. We tune on into a match. We show up to a game. We don't know who the setters are. Same with the team. Like, it's week to week with those setters. And so I think when you have that kind of system, I mean, we've been bashing on the 6-2 because there's no consistency. You can't get into a rhythm. Where's the confidence between setter hitter? And we're running 3 of them. So I think that's been the Husker issue. I mean, we obviously have the personnel. It's just a matter of, hey, this could be our last game of the season. Let's connect no matter what happens, no matter who's out there. Let's connect with each other. I mean, I think that's just going to have to be the mantra going into the last 4 games of the season.
So far, Tanya Taki is going to be the reason Nebraska upsets number 7 Creighton. She bet on Creighton. She's in Vegas for her birthday weekend, and Nebraska is leading 51-43. So far, thank you, Tanya. We appreciate that.
I'm all over it.
Yeah, taking one for the team. Considering the team, Nebraska, of course, they get to the Sweet 16, maybe not as comfortable as we thought it could be had you had somebody like Kenzie Knuckles, but now you don't. And you got Allie Batenhorst in the back row. How is that working out so far, in your opinion?
I mean, I think Allie's doing a great job. Obviously to have her first game back where she's all the way around to be against Wisconsin, like that's a big cookie to eat. I think she did a really good job that game. I thought she got ace maybe 2 or 3 times, but overall, I think she held her own, and I think she only gained confidence the last 2 matches. So I think that's a good sign. It's just, is it going to be enough when we're playing a team that's going to be like a Wisconsin, which would be Louisville? I don't know that Oregon has the firepower, but what they do is they're a very good team. They have a lot of confidence, and they also have nothing to lose. Like, they're not even hardly supposed to be here. Like, let's go. Let's see what we can do against Nebraska.
Yep. Absolutely. How are things going with Nebraska 1? I know you're on vacation right now, but
yes,
everything's squared away.
Yes, we are looking forward to a great 2023 season, and we're having my 25-year coaching celebration on Thursday. 6 to 8 at courtside. We rented an ice cream machine, and we're going to be serving up ice cream sundaes for Thursday night.
Okay, so you've been coaching 25 years, but it's your birthday weekend. You're only 29. How is that possible?
I know. It just means I'm super old. Actually, Fiona Nepo and I coached a 14 team when we were I was a sophomore. She was a junior in college.
Yeah. Well, I guess ruin the surprise. I already got you a birthday gift. Final Four trip for the Nebraska volleyball team. I was going to save it as a surprise for you next weekend. What would they have to do to get to the Final Four?
I mean, they're just going to have to connect and just believe that they can do it with each other. And let's just see if Cubic can just bring that team together without her, what Coach Cook called her soulmate. Her and Knuckles were just a great combination back there, and she's going to have to take it on herself and just bring this team together. I'm putting my money on Cubic being that person that just brings the team together.
Tanya, you're the best. We love you. Happy birthday. And
Thanks.
We'll talk to you as the Huskers are headed to the Final Four next Sunday.
Okay, perfect. We'll do it.
Have a great time, Tanya.
I already got it for a birthday present, so I can't give it back. Don't want to do that. The Huskers going to the Final Four. I'm going to queue up the starting gate. We haven't done the starting gate so far because we wanted to get Tanya on the air and talk a little bit about Husker volleyball because we want to do we're going to do the whole post game of Nebraska versus Creighton.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some guests come in that normally do the post game as well and have a lot of fun. But with that, let's get in and I'll give you a score update and then the starting gate.
Let's get to a score update first and then the starting gate from Mike Melby.
Nebraska with the ball, 51-43. The Huskers lead by 8. 3:45 to go in the second half up in Omaha.
Derek Walker scores again.
Nice.
Oh, my goodness.
Huskers up 10.
Is he a weapon? With 3:36 left to go, Nebraska up 53-43.
So, starting gate, we're going to rewind the week for you. Nebraska volleyball, we just talked to Tanya. They won the first 2 matches of the NCAA tournament with a sweep of Delaware State on Thursday night. They win at 25-15, 25-9, 25-10. Huskers held the Hornets to a negative 108 hitting percentage. 4th time this year they've held an opponent to a negative hitting percentage. Lindsey Krause led the way with 10 kills. And then on Friday night, what turned into a barn burner in the 3rd and 4th sets, Nebraska wins in the 4th set and gets the 3-1 victory, 25-14, 25-18, 19-25, and then 26-24 in the 4th. Lindsey Krause again led the way, 13 kills in that one. Both Maddie Kubik and Allie Batenhorst had 10 kills. And they face Oregon 10 a.m. Thursday at the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. And if they win that, they will play the winner of Louisville-Baylor at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Nebraska Husker women's basketball faced Virginia Tech on Thursday, got smoked 85-54. They went into Maryland today, noon tip-off. They've never beaten Maryland ever. 15-0 were the Terps against the Huskers. Maryland, number 20 ranked in the country. Oh, yeah, Huskers spanked them. They wind up outscoring Maryland 29-20 in the 3rd quarter and then 30-11 in the 4th quarter. Nebraska pulls away for a 90-67 win over 20th ranked Maryland. And an update on Nebraska basketball, 2:19 to go in the second half. Nebraska 57.
Oh, man.
7th ranked Creighton 45.
We got to make this a Collins show, right? If the Huskers win this game, it has become a Collins show.
Well, yeah, because
Honda Lincoln Hotline, Sutter Haven text line, text and calls 464-5685. I mean, this is a major Christmas present for me.
Yeah, it truly is. Let's roll with the starting gate a little bit longer. 88-67, Nebraska rolled past Boston College in the Big Ten ACC Challenge Wednesday at PBA. Casey Tominaga, 7 of 8 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3, 5 of 5 from the line, 23 points. CJ Wilcher, 14 all in the second half. Emmanuel Bandamel, 12, 6, and 6. Juwan Gary, Derek Walker, both chipped in 10. Walker in foul trouble most of the game. Another solid performance from Blaze Cada. 5 points, 8 boards, 4 offensive, 2 assists, and he drew 2 more charges.
And he didn't play enough.
I know.
He doesn't play enough. Put him on the floor more often.
And it is 57-45, 2:19 to play up in Omaha. Huskers with a 12-point lead. On Wednesday this last week, Mickey Joseph was arrested by Lincoln Police for strangulation and 3rd-degree assault after a domestic disturbance earlier that afternoon. He has since posted $2,000 bail and been released from jail. More on that in the upcoming weeks. Earlier today, Coastal Carolina announced they are hiring former Nebraska offensive coordinator Tim Beck as their next head coach, replacing Jamie Chadwell, who was rumored to be in the running at Nebraska. He left to take over Liberty, and announced earlier today Colorado has named Deion Sanders their new head coach. And within hours, Colorado AD Rick George implores the fans to not sell tickets to the home opener, Deion's first game. To who is it again? What team do they play?
I know they wear red. That's all I know. I know it's not Alabama, and I know they wear red. Nebraska.
Rick George begging the fans, hey, Deion's our head coach. By the way, please don't sell your tickets to Nebraska fans for Deion's first game.
How exciting has Colorado football just gotten? They've been they haven't gotten recruits in the NIL world because they just don't participate, and they have really stringent rules at the university about doing that. But how do you not with Deion?
Oh, I know.
I mean, I'm going all in on everything.
Exactly.
With Deion Sanders.
Earlier today, College Football Selection Committee announced their top 4. Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and Ohio State are the 4 that will vie for the national title, leaving out a 2-loss Alabama team for just the second time in the 9 years of the playoff, the other time being back in 2019-2020. Georgia will take on Ohio State. Michigan takes on TCU. And the winner of those 2 games play for the national title in college football this year. I think rightfully so. I actually agree with most of the national pundits that prior to conference championship games, that's when you make the selection. You can't play your way out while someone who's not playing in a conference championship game can sit there and get in. And as much as Nick Saban wants to whine and cry because, we are Alabama and I am Nick Saban, too bad, so sad.
Games. You lost 2 games.
Well, yeah, and then they had to have, a last-second field goal or something to beat a 5-6.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, and I look back at that Nebraska. Sorry, I'm thinking about Nebraska basketball, and Creighton is making a furious comeback here at the end. Nebraska's struggling for a rebound. 1:34 left to go in the game. You'd really like to have that rebound. Creighton just hits a 3. It's 59 to 51 with 1:34 left to go.
Yeah, that's crazy. But with college football playoff, I mean, it's one of those where it's all going to be a moot point here in a couple of years, because the funny thing is going to be the arguments from the people who are 13th and 14th and 15th and 16th and their fan bases on how the playoff needs to go to 16 teams because it's so unfair. That's coming in 2024.
Yeah, they got the right 4 teams, right? I mean, Alabama should not be in. They have 2 losses. Ohio State squeaks in, and you could make the argument they got blown out by Michigan. But if you rewatch that game, that was a really close game, and then Michigan kind of buried them. Or I think that was a little bit of a Harbaugh thing to try to pour it on to make the point spread what it was at the end. What happened just there? Was that a charge called?
That was
a charge called.
Derek Walker just took a
Great
charge.
Play by Derek Walker, and he was outside the circle.
I'll tell you right now, if we all know about Nebraska basketball and the history and all that stuff, but watching this game today, if you have not, do yourself a favor and go back and watch this or rewatch it at some point and watch the defensive effort that Nebraska plays with. There is not a pass, I think, that has been uncontested. And now, granted, Creighton has missed some wide open threes. They flat out have, but Nebraska has not been trying to run certain guys off the 3-point line. They kind of leisurely get out.
They're just not shooting well. They didn't shoot against Texas on Thursday night very well.
27.
It's horrible. They were checking to see if Walker was in fact outside the circle, and he was.
Yep.
And this is what concerns you right now. Okay, Creighton's got 7 fouls. It's a long throw, but can they make free throws? Well, they don't have to because Juwan Gary just gets a dunk.
And smart play. This is so different from last year because whoever that would have been last year would have tried to go in. They would have got fouled. They would have missed both free throws. Instead, CJ Welcher catches the home run pass or the Hail Mary pass, and he brings the ball back out. Juwan Gary runs by the defense, wide open dunk.
I guess this is my biggest concern, though. Nebraska's finally in the bonus. There's only a minute 14 left to go, but it's 7 fouls, so you're not shooting the double bonus. There's the extra added pressure of having to make the first one to get the second one. And so far, this has not been a very good free throw shooting team. You're going to be in a lot of games like this year. Can you make free throws when it counts?
So where does it go from not very good with free throw shooting to horrible? Because they're at 62.4%.
Well, this is a big one right here. Greasel, front end, good.
Well, right now, if I'm Nebraska, if I am Barry Collier, if I am Fred Hoiberg, I am getting the ball in the hands of Casey Tominaga, And I'm telling him, make sure you don't lose it. Get yourself fouled. Get to the line.
You know, what Nebraska has done in the second half, get it to Casey. Well, they've gotten it to Greasel, and you would expect that to be the case because he is their point guard as Nebraska hits the rebound. But it's been a two-man game, really, that's worked between Greasel and Walker.
Yeah.
And they find everybody else. They share it. It doesn't mean they're taking all the shots. I'm just saying a two-man game as Wilcher turns it over with 54 seconds left to go, and Creighton takes a bomb, but Nebraska gets the rebound.
Yeah, and this is a game that really, I thought, it shone a light on, in not a good way, on a couple of players. There were some comments made prior to the game by either Derek Walker or Sam Greasel about how Nebraska, none of the players, this is not bigger than we are. Don't let the moment be bigger than you are.
Yeah, and it did for a time in this game.
There's one guy that I think the moment was too big for today, and he just turned the ball over a minute ago.
But Nebraska's going to win the game, which is awesome. They never beat Creighton, and they're going to beat Creighton. They're up 63 to 53 with 11 seconds left to go in the game. That's probably going to be the final score, 63 to 53.
Yeah, unbelievable. You and I talked about this. In case you don't know, Tom and I talk ad nauseum during Nebraska basketball games via text. And it would be pay per read if we ever allowed people to read them. But this is such a different team with Derek Walker on the floor.
Completely different. I haven't seen, maybe you can recall teams that look like this from Nebraska. I can't recall many teams, period, in college basketball that play the way Nebraska is trying to play this year. But it's the only way that they can. They turned it over. You know, that was a huge problem against St. John's. It was a huge problem against Oklahoma, neither of which was Derek Walker available for, as Nebraska finishes off Creighton 63 to 53. The final, number 7 Creighton falls 2 in a row, and we expected the one at Texas, but certainly not at home in a rivalry game against Nebraska.
Well, they've now lost 3 in a row.
They lost the Arizona game too.
They
as
lost
well?
the championship game down in
Okay.
Maui.
I was thinking, I couldn't remember exactly when that Arizona game happened, and you didn't think that was a problem. Arizona's really talented.
Yeah.
And that game went right down to the wire. And you didn't think losing to Texas is a big problem because Texas is number 2 in the country, and they're really, really talented. That was on their home floor.
And then you were scared because Creighton lost.
They're mad.
62-50 or 72-67, shooting 4 of 27 from 3.
And then I don't think they shot much better today. You can run through the highlights as Nebraska pulls off the biggest upset, certainly of the Hoiberg era, the biggest upset since No-Sit Sunday, would you say? Is this the biggest upset for Nebraska basketball since No-Sit Sunday?
Well, but that wasn't really much of an upset. I mean, I'm sorry. I think Wisconsin was favored in that game by like 4 points, but
didn't they play in the championship game that year?
Yeah, but everybody and their brother knew that Nebraska was going to win that game. I mean, Nebraska, Teron Petaway, that was one of those when he was unconscious.
But this is a bigger win in that that was at home. Bigger. I mean, well, no, that was a bigger win because it got to the Nebraska to the NCAA tournament. A much bigger win in that way. But this was a bigger upset for Nebraska because it's on the road at Creighton, where you never win. I do remember Barry Collier in the NIT going on the road with Nate Johnson, remember? And they beat him on the road in the NIT.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you've only beaten a team once in 11 tries, you just assume going into that game, at least I did, this thing's over. You're not beating Creighton. You're just not going to do it. Can you cover was my next guess. And Tanya mentioned that she bet on Creighton, knowing that she had pulled the whammy on Creighton, right?
I know. That's so smart. You sacrifice a little bit of your own money.
That's right. That's right. She did it for the good of Nebraska. That's why I always, I don't always, but sometimes I'll say the Vikings aren't going to win and think maybe they'll win because I said they're not going to win. I'm a little weird that way.
Let's do this. Let's jump to break.
Okay.
I'm going to study kind of the stats and make sure that we can come back and get a little bit more information on this. And we're going to roll on with the Husker Rewind / Nebraska basketball postgame show when we come back right here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The most innovative ag technology that exists today on display in one place at the Nebraska Ag Expo. Autonomous and robotic equipment, precision ag, commodity marketing gurus, and more. All in the brand new innovation hub at the Nebraska Ag Expo. Come check it out December 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Lancaster Event Center in Lincoln. Register online at nebraskaagexpo.com to get your tickets in advance and save $5. The Nebraska Ag Expo is sponsored Sponsored by Farm Credit Services of America and Ag Direct.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and things are rocking in Louisville. We've got transport showing up every day with loads of new inventory, lots of new trucks, SUVs, and crossovers. Our pre-owned inventory is also filling up fast. Our GMC Terrain inventory is really filling up fast, so we're putting special pricing on those right now. This is the time to check out our GMC Terrains, as we've got all models with a great selection of colors at a discounted price. So please stop in or check them out online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens here, Mike Melby there. Husker Rewind every Sunday from 5 until 7, although today it became the Husker postgame basketball show. Fred Hoiberg talking to the guys, Nick Baugh on FS1, and Lane Grendel. I haven't seen Lane Grendel for a long time, but he is calling to the game on FS1 today. He is the voice, one of the voices of the Milwaukee Brewers, and does some college basketball on the side. But today he's doing the game with Nick Baugh. Kind of cool.
It is. And Lane Grendel, it's one of those where for those of us in broadcasting, there's certain individuals that are just simply icons that you would always want to work with or be a part of. And Bob Uecker is one of them. Uecker for many, many decades was the voice of Milwaukee Brewer baseball. And when he finally said, okay, I'm going to walk away, I'm going to allow someone else to fill my chair, take my microphone. Literally, Lane Grendel was the choice.
I know he was.
That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Lane with a good call
I
today.
know he got a recommendation from David Whitty, who used to work for the Kansas City Royals. And David Whitty used to run the whole Nebraska broadcast Husker Sports Network back in the day. He's now retired from that, but worked for the Kansas City Royals previous to that, gave Lane a recommendation. And Lane's really, really good calling baseball, but not, obviously doing college basketball as well, but one of the voices of Nebraska football about 10 years ago.
So thanks to Eric and Bruce chiming in. Bruce says, great win, go Big Red. We probably need medical attention for Eric. He said he's happily shocked, and there's a lot of exclamation marks, and so I'm kind of worried he got shocked somehow, but no, Eric and Bruce, thanks for chiming in as well. Fantastic game by the Huskers. And let's run through some of the stats for you on the game. Nebraska wins it 63-53. Tom Stevens, if before the game I would have told you that Nebraska would have shot 25% from three,
I would have thought that.
Only 3 of 12. They would have turned the ball over 13 times. They would have been beaten on the offensive glass, given up 10 boards versus the 5 offensive boards they got, although they ultimately out-rebounded Creighton 42-37. And for the game, Nebraska shoots 47.5%. Would you have said Nebraska wins or Nebraska loses?
Well, I would have loved the 47.5%. And the reason they're able to do it is Derek Walker can get to the rim anytime he wants to on anybody. But he's become a great distributor. He and Griesel can play, as I mentioned, a nice little two-man game. It'd be nice to see CJ play a little better. Be nice to see Nebraska make free throws on a consistent basis. What was the free throw shooting today?
Free throw shooting for Nebraska, they were 4 of 7. Griesel goes 3 of 5. Juwan Gary 1 of 2. So not a lot of opportunities for the Huskers to make free throws. Flip side is that was one hell of a defensive performance.
Yes.
They had 9 total fouls in the game.
Yep.
Creighton winds up 3 of 5 from the free throw line.
Well, and you mentioned the threes and being a problem with Nebraska, and that wasn't a big surprise. If Tamanaga and Wilcher are struggling a little bit, Nebraska is probably going to struggle to make threes in general. The good news for me was they only took 12 of them. So they didn't look at it say, well, we got to continue to throw it at the ocean like Nebraska teams of past have done. They gave up trying to shoot a lot of threes.
They did. And Ryan Kalkenbrenner is 7'1", 260. He's not 7'1", 195.
Right.
He's not like one of those guys that you're like, oh, we can go attack him.
He's a shot blocker.
He's a shot blocker. So what is Nebraska's game plan?
Let's
go right at him. Because and the thing is, I don't know if Fred would have said this. He's a lot more modest than I am. But I think they literally were like, I think we can go at him. I know he's a great shot blocker, but I think we're better. I think we finish better. I think Derek Walker is better than Ryan Kalkenbrenner. And at the end of the day, Kalkenbrenner, 10 points. He did turn the ball over twice, only had one block shot, 10 boards. He goes 5 of 8 from the field for Nebraska. His counterpart, Derek Walker, 11 of 16 from the field, 4 offensive boards, 7 total rebounds, 2 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but 22 points for Derek Walker. And what a difference he makes.
If I would have just flown down from the moon to the studio and turned on that game, having known nothing about either team, and you would have told me, oh, that guy's a first-team All-American, I would have believed you. Yeah. Or he certainly looks first-team All-League type of guy, and you better be pretty good at the center position in this league. Now he went at a 7'4" dude for Florida State and took him to the rim. But Kalkbrenner is a really,
he's the
real deal and can block shots. He may be Creighton's best player all around. At least statistically, he has been. But Walker took him apart piece by piece today.
He did. And the fun thing is that everything that Derek Walker does when he finishes plays, it's the simple, basic, fundamental plays. Very rarely do you see an athletic play from Derek Walker where you're like, oh my goodness, the guy's got, a 55-inch vertical jump. You're like, oh, he just made another, kind of light runner with a light kiss off the glass.
How does he get those shots off?
And then he goes to the left. But he ducks his arm under and does a little scoop shot underneath the defender's arm for a layup with his right hand. Nothing he does blows you away as like just this spectacular play. And then you look, oh, by the way, he was 11 of 16, 22 points.
Yeah, and he wasn't alone having a good day. Juwan Gary had a fabulous day, I thought. 5 of 5 from the field, 1 of 1. He only took 1 3. Sometimes he can fall in love with the three-pointer. He didn't today. He just made 1, but he only tried 1. He had 9 rebounds. He is a tough dude. He gets you 12 points. And then the other guy that I would mention is pretty obvious, Sam Griesel. 7 of 13. He was much more aggressive offensively today. He got to the rim. He had talked about that in some of the articles I had read this week, that he's been a little too passive and that he needs to be aggressive looking for his shot. But when he's making buckets, other players around him benefit because you kind of have to focus your attention on him, and then he can get it to Walker. Again, a nice 2-man game. But when you got Walker, Gary, or just give me 3. If he can give me 3 guys that contribute tonight, it was Griesel, Walker, and Gary for me.
It was. Text line. Michael chimes in and he says, Nebraska rules, Creighton drools. That's good. That's
good. I like it.
And Corey says, I can't believe I watched that. It was ugly as all get out, but they played tough. I like it. And Corey, I'm going to tell you something. The guy sitting across from me, Tom Stevens, when this season started, during some of our text conversations, he's like, the only way that we're going to win this year, we just got to be ugly. We got to ugly every game up. We got to win like Rutgers.
I embrace your inner Rutgers is what I said. And this team reminds me of not just Rutgers, but a lot of Big Ten teams. There's a lot of ugliness, but the things that never go cold, shooting goes cold, obviously. So even free throw shooting with this team. Thing that almost never goes cold is good defense and good rebounding. Yeah. And that's something they can do every night.
Good defense, good rebounding, and flat out hustle plays.
Yeah.
They
were so many hard.
Yeah. I love it. Silver Cloak chimes in and says, maybe next year, Jays, the Dos Equis commercial with when the gal is going to text whoever that is a rival, and she sends him a placemat that says, we need to send Greg McDermott a placemat that says, here's your case of Dos Equis, but better luck next year.
How many years have we gone into the Creighton, in a given year? Maybe it's a home game, and you think Nebraska has the guns to probably win the game this year. This is not one of those years you were saying that, right? This is a top 10 Creighton team. I know they came off the loss to Texas and Arizona, but this is a really good basketball team. Jay Billis said built for the Final Four, that type of good. This wasn't one of those years, especially on the road, that you were saying Nebraska is going to win this game. I was thinking if they can hold them to 20, that's a pretty good night. If they can lose by 20, that may not be a terrible night. Because we've seen some 50-point losses to Creighton.
What was it, like 30-4 or whatever?
Yeah,
a couple of years ago.
We've watched them together.
I was going to say we were at a local establishment over on Cotner that night. Husker Howie chimes in and said that, and I kind of wanted to touch on this a little bit during the postgame show here. Baylor Shireman chose the wrong Nebraska school to come back to, and it's interesting. The pitches are, Fred Hoiberg is going to tell him. One, it's my 5-out system is going to allow you to shine and show your skills even more for the NBA scouts. And Greg McDermott is going to say, the system I run is going to be something that's going to be able to show your scouts. But at the end of the day, if you're thinking between Nebraska and Creighton, we're a preseason top 10 team. Right. They may not go 500, so you'll be the best team on a 500 team. That's in my mind what I'm thinking Greg McDermott would have said. I don't know that he did, but here's the deal. If Baylor Shireman is on this Nebraska basketball team and Derek Walker's healthy for the first 5 games,
25 team.
They're a top 25 team. Now, Baylor Shireman is not here. He's not coming here. They have enough weapons. Casey Tominaga, unbelievable the other night. 23 points.
Nothing tonight.
Yeah, 7 of 8 from the floor. Tonight, nothing. All of his I didn't mind any of his shots.
And you know what? I bet he's okay with it. We saw the joy when he had 23 points the other night, and you beat BC, and it was a great win, and he was celebrated by ESPN that night, and they brought him over, and it was great. Actually, his English has gotten pretty decent as well, and he's just a lovable guy and provides energy. But I would guess he's still just as happy with the win tonight. And a lot of guys aren't that way. Like, if they have a bad night and Nebraska wins, they're still a little grumpy, you know? I don't see that coming from Tominaga. And that's probably the difference between this team and some other teams Nebraska's had.
Yeah, Corey chimes in. Great day to be a Husker, man. Nebraska women knock off number 20. They didn't knock off number 20 Maryland. They kicked their butt.
Badly.
It was 90-67. They were down 5 at half, and they win it going away by 22. And then the Husker men today, just absolutely, I want to say dominate, because from the opening tip, defensively, Nebraska dominated this game today. And they win by 10 over Creighton. First time that they have beaten them in just a couple of years. I think it was 18-19 or 19-20 last time Nebraska won against Creighton. However, this is only the second win in the last 12 meetings for Nebraska over Creighton, as Greg McDermott has built one hell of a program up in Omaha.
And you've got a resume win. You've got, something at the end of the year, if Nebraska's on the bubble, and this looks like a team that could at least get to the bubble, right? Am I saying something crazy that Nebraska just beat the 17? If I would have said before the game, well, I guarantee you they'll beat Creighton today, and they'll beat them on the road by 10, you would have said, well, just call the paddy wagon and take him away, because he's absolutely nuts. So now you start looking ahead and you think, well, Indiana, they're the 10th ranked team in the country. I know it's at Indiana, but you just beat Creighton.
Well, they're not as good as Creighton. They were number 7.
Right. And then you think you've got a winnable game with Purdue at home. We were saying go 1-2 in that stretch, and maybe 2-2 with a win over Kansas State. And you're talking about something.
Yeah.
Now you're saying, well, heck, why not just win the next game against Indiana as well?
And the one thing that I have seen from Fred Hoiberg teams over his first 3 years here, and I want to give a shout out to Andy for chiming in with a stat. I'm a stats guy for those that don't know, but Andy chimes in with a stat. I knew this. This is the first regular season win in Omaha for Nebraska since 1995. We did win up there in 2004 in the NIT at Creighton, but Nebraska's not won up in Omaha in a long time.
I remember Nate Johnson had a big night at Creighton in the NIT, and Barry Collier coached that team, and they won that game. But it's really difficult to find moments where Nebraska's had pure joy since the knee era against Creighton. I think of Ryan Anderson going off with Doc Sadler one time when Nebraska had one of the smallest teams in college basketball that year with Charles Richardson and the gang. I think they beat Creighton at home that year. But there just aren't many moments when you've beaten a Creighton team, and McDermott's calling this his best team maybe ever.
Yeah. It's crazy, but bottom, this goes back to it's coach speak. You hear coaches say it all the time. Control what you can control. Do you know what you can control? Attitude and effort. So Nebraska went out with a great attitude, and that effort today was fantastic.
And how many times have we said this, Mike? I don't know. Maybe we haven't said it much at all, but there have been nights where I've seen Nebraska pull an upset, and you go, well, that's not repeatable. They're not going to make that many threes. They're not going to hit that many free throws. Terran Petaway isn't going to go for 35 every night, whatever the excuse might be. This version of Nebraska looks repeatable. Rinse and repeat. You can do this, because it wasn't like, again, they shot 26% from 3.
Yeah.
You can play better than they did today, and yet they won by 10.
Yeah. If you want to chime in, 464-5685 is the Honda of Lincoln hotline, and the Sutter Heyman text line. Text in. Just got one in from Randy. I agree. We'll just say Sam is a stud. And Patty Wagon, hilarious. Hell yeah. Great win by the Huskers. I'm always hopeful. I always am. Even years that we just knew that it was not going to be a great year, etc. But this is, I go back to preseason and one of the first press conferences Coach Hoiberg held this year, and he said over and over, this is a team that our fans, I think, are going to really like the way they play.
Yeah.
He didn't make any bold predictions. He didn't, he's like, yeah, I know.
I'm
under pressure.
I was at the first practice. He went out of his way. We've seen some of those practices where, Tamanaga pulls up from half court, or Wilcher does the same, and behind the back passes, and it's all about the dunk and the show. Fred went out of his way this year for that first practice. Like the 3-man weave was the highlight without a shot being taken. They did have a 3-point contest, which was kind of cool, the women versus the men, and they mixed it up that way. That was fun. But he went out of his way to show the fans, hey, we're not the same. I know the criticism of this team. We can look rather selfish at times. We can take bag shots. We can play rather sloppy. We can not dive. Sometimes we don't rebound or dive on the floor for loose balls. He was sending the message of what the team that he wanted the Husker fans to see this year. And they showed it today, what they can be. And it's pretty good. They still struggle to shoot, but we knew that going in.
Well, yeah, and the other key thing, I want to Eddie asked the question on the Sutter Heyman text line. If Derek Walker would have played the first 5 games, would we be a 8-1 team right now? Only one loss.
I think it's very possible they could have beaten both St. John's. They had the lead at halftime.
Yep.
St. John's, and then the Oklahoma game. And then Memphis. Memphis was a win. I think they could have won 2 of those 3.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
All 3 of those games. And he just changes your team when you can get to the rim whenever you want. And that's Derek Walker. He can get to the rim and not necessarily for himself. He can help other guys get buckets. And he did today.
Yep.
I really, by the way, Tanya said in this, and you're willing to, we'd love to hear from you. Sutter Heyman text line 464-5685, Honda of Lincoln hotline. You could call in. She sent a picture of her ticket, the Nebraska versus Creighton. She says, you're welcome. She did bet on Creighton to win that game, but that was her way. She told us on the air, proving that Nebraska would win the game somehow, some way. Anyway, they do win the game 63-53, despite the fact that they shot horribly from 3. They didn't always take care of the ball, but they found something with the offense. It's sometimes ugly, but they found something. And you'd like to think Wilcher has a good night. Tamanaga has a good night. This thing's a blowout, right?
Well, and that's the whole thing. Wilcher goes 0 of 5 from 3. Tamanaga didn't take a 3. Combined, Wilcher and Tamanaga, who are our 2 best pure shooters on the team, go 2 of 12. And we win by 10 on the road against the number 7 team in the country. One guy that we haven't talked enough about, and I have had a couple of people chime in and give him some props, and you mentioned him. We just haven't really talked a whole lot about him in context of this game. But Sam Griesel, he's been a little maligned at times this year. He's gotten a little bit of flack, and there are times that you watch him and he makes a play and you just kind of scratch your head. But then when you see a game like today, Griesel, I think, had 9 rebounds as well. No, I'm sorry. Wow, I undersold him. He had 12 rebounds. So your point guard goes 7 of 13, hits his only 3, which was a 3 as the shot clock was expiring from, 34 feet. And like Sam Griesel today was the player. He had 2 turnovers, and both of them were frustrating to watch. But everybody's going to turn the ball over every once in a while. When you look at his whole game today, he has 18 points, 7 of 13 shooting, so he's efficient.
Yeah.
He does go 3 of 5 from the line. Normally, I would say he's going to hit 4 or 5, but regardless, he winds up with 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and just a couple of turnovers. And best of all, 2 personal fouls, which means he stayed out of foul trouble. That's so huge.
Yeah, he's not a natural point guard. We all know that. But with the help of Walker, and I think I do point to that. I think a problem that Sam had was turning it over, and maybe he will have that again. And Walker had a game where he almost had a triple-double, and one of the categories would have been turnovers.
He had 9.
But since then, I think that was his first game back. So he struggled a little bit. Since then, he's figured it out. He had a few turnovers today. What, 3 or 4 turnovers from Derek Walker? 3. But so he can still play a little bit better. But they're figuring out with that two-man game, they can take pressure off of each other. That is Greasel and Walker, and they can get to the rim. Both those guys are big enough, and then once they get to the rim, they can finish at the rim.
Yep.
I would like to see Blaise Keita play more.
I would too. The substitution patterns puzzled me a little bit today, but hey, it worked.
Yeah, they won the game.
Exactly. Frederick says, good to hear your voice, Tom. Great win for the Huskers today. And from Randy, we were far more physical. Yeah, you know what, Randy? That is not an understatement in any way, shape, or form. We were far and away the more physical. And Kalkenbrenner 2 or 3 times got tied up with William Breitbach. And I get letting the game go, but there was a couple of them where they're laying on the ground and Kalkenbrenner is like blatantly like trying to injure Wilhelm Breitbach, and it's just like, what's going on there? It's
Breitbach hasn't figured it out quite yet. I think him making that 3 was huge for his confidence and huge for the team. They kind of needed it. He hit it at a time with the shot clock running down. They really needed it. I don't think he played his best game. I think that his best game is out there. He's obviously coming back from a knee injury that put him down for a long time, ended his season last year, and I think he's still trying to get his confidence back. But if they can find that, then you've got 3 bigs that are legit in this league. I don't think Kalianetz is ever going to play this year, but maybe down the road. But you've got Walker, obviously you've got Keita, and you've got Breitbach. So you've got some decent size, and then they've got the length of Jawan Gary. Jawan Gary just had a great day today. They don't have to shoot a ton of threes to beat you. They're seriously like Rutgers. Maybe not the newer version, but the Rutgers of the last 2 or 3 years. But there are going to be nights where Nebraska is going to shoot, I think, 40% and be in the game till the end.
Oh, absolutely.
And then if they can have those games where they can make a few threes, they're going to beat some teams, especially at home.
Yeah, Byron chimes in, says he was less than thrilled with the refereeing and thinks that we could have won by 20. The only caveat to that, Byron, is that we shoot 62% from the line. We did go 4 of 7 today, but they would have needed to make the free throws. Let's go ahead and jump to break. It is kind of a combination show. It is the Husker Rewind with Tom and Mike, and it is also Nebraska basketball postgame show here on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll continue rolling on after this.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the KNTK Studios, 330 North 48th Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeited. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and things are rocking in Louisville. We've got transport showing up every day with loads of new inventory, lots of new trucks, SUVs, and crossovers. Our pre-owned inventory is also filling up fast. Our GMC terrain inventory is really filling up fast, so we're putting special pricing on those right now. This is the time to check out our GMC terrains, as we've got all models with a great selection of colors at a discounted price. So please stop in or check them out online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
The Ticket Water Cooler with Jake Bakoven and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
He's probably the best coach at Temple history. I'm not trying to lower but the narrative that he took over a mess at Temple is not correct. They had 4 straight head coaches use Temple to get to a Power 5 job.
Well, he did it at Baylor. It was the first time a coach went from 11 losses to 11 wins in 2 seasons or less.
Sounds Scott Frosty. Don't give him one of those stats.
I'm just, that's an interesting stat.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens here, Mike Melby here, there.
We're
Together.
everywhere, man.
You can't stop us. Strength of 10 men, but they're very tiny men. Nebraska gets a big win over Creighton, 63-53, the first time they've beaten Creighton in a while. Creighton had won the last 10 of 11, but the Huskers go on the road and beat the 7th-ranked team in the country. Let's go old school. DP is here talking about the game. Of course, you'll be talking about it a lot tomorrow. That was huge for the Hoiberg era.
Yeah, we were trying to ponder if there was a bigger day for Nebraska hoops in general. I mean, with the girls going to College Park and getting their first win over Maryland ever, and then Hoiberg and company going on a win streak. Like, this is a 3-game win streak against all Power 5 teams, and then winning the state championship on the road against number 7 Creighton. I'd say that's quite the day for Nebraska basketball across the board.
It is, DP, and going. Last time Nebraska beat Creighton was December 8th, 2018. They won the time before that, December 5th, 2010. But the thing about both games that stood out to me was the play in the second half and just the dominance, and the dominance for both teams started on the defensive side of the ball. That just speaks volumes, because that means that you're doing things the right way and you're winning the right way.
Well, I mean, this was purposeful. And I know Husker fans have a little bit of PTSD when it comes to, mantras and promises over what the team should and could be that year. But Fred, give Coach Hoiberg credit for saying, listen, we're gonna rebound better. We're gonna be defensively better on purpose. They went out and got older players who understood, who had been in these big games, who the moment wasn't going to be too big for, and then guys who are willing to commit to defensive effort first. There's some things that you can say about this Nebraska team and the program, but what you'll say today is they held the number 7 team to under 31% from the field. They held them to 10 of 40 from 3. They beat them on the boards. They were plus 5 in when it comes to rebounds. This is what Nebraska fans hoped for, but they couldn't even dream that they would be a 10-point win at Creighton with this squad, a 3-game win streak. Look, the defense and boards is what the fans asked for. That's what Hoiberg gave them. The number that jumps out to me, and it was kind of mind-boggling, that Nebraska was 46-16 in the paint.
Yeah. 46-16
in the paint. And for those folks with their eyes towards Big Ten basketball, those are numbers that should be highlighted and should be the plan going forward.
Well, this team has changed, too, since Derek Walker arrived in the starting lineup, and we knew that he was going to be a big part of the team to start the season, but then he didn't start the season. But since he has come back, Nebraska has gone on that winning streak. He was 11 of 16 today. He had 8 rebounds, 22 points. I was saying to Mike, if I would have told you, oh, yeah, that guy's first team all Big Ten, you would have said, oh, that sounds right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the level of play that we're talking about, especially in the last 3 games, that what we hoped for from the big man position to get from it what you're getting from Derek Walker. Look, he did it against three consecutive legit bigs. Like, he wasn't doing this against Meatball State, as Jay Foreman likes to say. He's doing this against quality teams, quality bigs, quality defenses. And listen, he put up numbers that those teams that sit above Creighton didn't do. Like, so look, he's effective, he's efficient, he's a veteran. 22-8 tonight, plus the work that he did in press break. That's invaluable. The fact that he goes through and handles the ball, he gets them in and out of trouble. And then as the steadier, even injured, even with a limp, he put up 22-8. That's one hell of a night.
The interesting thing, I don't see the numbers. I haven't found the stats that show it on the plus minus. But at one point, when it was a 3 or 4 point game in the first half, and Walker had been out for a while, we were plus 13 with him on the floor. And then translate that then into the second half. He gets his third foul. But Tom and I are both yelling. I mean, I'm sure Hoiberg probably finally heard us to put him back in the game, even though he's got 3 fouls. But that 2-man game that they ran with Griesel and Walker literally just slowly walking the ball down the lane like it's a pick and roll that's just in slow motion, and Griesel winds up finishing 3 or 4 times. Otherwise, he gets the ball over to Derek, or Walker winds up with an offensive board, etc. To me, that was stunning. Did that surprise you that that's literally what they turned their offense into in the second half?
Well, no, because I saw it down in Orlando that the phrase in this is, if the spacing is right, the pacing is right. And when you have a 6'7" point guard and a 6'10" center, often they are not out height. They're not taller than the people they play against, but they're either quicker than or stronger than the people they're playing against. So if we're running to the front of the rim, at some point, whether late or early, he's going to beat them. And that's the patience that's required of 2 veteran players able to play that way. I saw a little bit of that in Walker and Tamanaga. Walker and Gary are beginning to do that. And let's give Juwan Gary some credit as well.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect shooting from the field, 12 points, 9 rebounds. And what he did defensively, look, he and Bandamel make concessions for this team. And they do whatever is required as often as required for this team to have success. It's not always sexy, but this team, when it's patient and they act and they play with maturity, that's where they had the advantage over what was considered a veteran Creighton team.
Yeah. Was
that they were patient. Listen, if I don't beat you off the first step, the third step I should beat you. Hey, you're going to cover the 5th step, then we're going to get a big to turn their eyes towards the cutter, and Derek's going to repost him, or he's going to cut off of it. And then his ability to identify the shooters off the space. Look, give Nebraska credit. Creighton took 43s tonight. Nebraska didn't play that game. They only shot 12.
Yeah.
And that's a difference maker. I mean, this is a game where this could have been played in a closet. There were 12 free throws taken all game long.
Yeah.
So Nebraska outlasted. They outworked. They were too strong, and they were too patient for Creighton.
Yep, it felt like something that rinse and repeat. This is doable. They didn't even play the pretty version. I mean, Tamanaga and Wiltshire give you a combined 4 points, and they win the game. So I think there's room to grow for this team. That's the exciting thing, is I don't think they played their best basketball, and they still beat Creighton, the number 7 team in the country on the road, by 10 points. That's pretty cool, DP.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't seem like a struggle. It seemed like it was within their space. And you're right. Wiltshire gave you 2. Bandamel gave you 4. Dedham Dawson didn't score. Blaise Cada didn't score. Breidenbach and Tamanaga combined for 5. That means you got 5 points off the bench, and you still won by 10. Like, that's the ability for them. And look, give Hoiberg credit for his staff management, for his personnel management. He was exceptional in getting quality minutes. He got 34 minutes off the bench, which is not a lot. is really not a lot. And they were 2 for 12 from the field, and it didn't hurt them because they were so efficient and the folks who did play major minutes. I mean, you got, the starters gave you 34, 35, 39, and 23 minutes. That's ridiculous. Those are ridiculous numbers.
Hey, good news, DP. You don't have to get me anything for Christmas. Nebraska just gave it to me with that win over Creighton. That was awesome.
What a day! What a day this was to watch the girls come from 11 down to blow out Maryland on their own floor, and then to have the gentlemen show up, go to Omaha, put their foot down, and then come back with the state championship. Bravo!
I can't wait to listen to you guys tomorrow. It's going to be a fun day on the ticket, whether it starts with early break, old school, the captain, and of course, on the block. We got everything. I want to hear what Strick has to say. I already texted him. I want him on the air. I want him now.
Well, he's going on right after you guys, so you'll be able to hear it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Strick will be on after us.
Strick and Brock will be on right after you.
Beautiful. Hope we don't take up too much. If they want to come in early, they could come in and talk to us.
Absolutely.
That's certainly allowed.
You have the numbers. Go ahead and hook it up.
Thanks, DP.
All right, guys.
We'll check you out tomorrow. There he is, following Nebraska's 63-53 win over Creighton. Seriously, I don't need this is way better than any Christmas present you could have given me.
Oh,
but
I
I
agree.
still kind of want a Christmas present.
I already know what I'm getting you to.
Right.
So, a big win for Nebraska, both the women's hoops team as they roll to a 90-67 win at number 20 Maryland. First win in the series history over Maryland for Nebraska women's hoops today. And then the men snap a 4-year losing streak to the Creighton Blue Jays. 3-year losing streak to the Creighton Blue Jays with a 63-53 upset win in Omaha over number 7 Creighton.
And you know what makes it even sweeter? Because there's a lot of things. I mean, because I just hate Creighton. I just don't like them. I never have liked them, and I never will like them. I think Nebraska could be a top 25, and maybe they still can be a top 25 team. But if Shireman were here, I would say that's a top 25 team, right? But he chooses Creighton. He gets the big NIL money, and you can't blame him for that. Casey Thompson certainly got some for Nebraska, and O'Shawn Mathis and others. I don't blame a guy getting money. But I think about the possibility of him being on this team, and it could be really good. But Nebraska could still be good without him. But they're going to need better contributions, I think, from Casey and Wilcher to be really, really good going forward.
Yeah,
you got to hit better than 26% from three at some point.
At some point you do.
Yeah, and I think they will. Let's go to break, and we'll come back. Let's talk about the coaching search a little bit. If you want to chime in and talk about Nebraska volleyball, we'd love to hear from you. The Sutter Heyman text line, the Honda of Lincoln hotline, 464-5685. But we'll talk a little bit about what happened today with Matt Rule and his new staff. It's starting to come together. I mean, you're starting to piece it together, and we'll talk about it. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. Together, it's Husker Rewind and the Husker postgame basketball show all together.
The most innovative ag technology that exists today on display in one place at the Nebraska Ag Expo. Autonomous and robotic equipment, precision ag, commodity marketing gurus, and more. All in the brand new Innovation Hub at the Nebraska Ag Expo. Come check it out December 6th, 7th, and 8th at the Lancaster Event Center in Lincoln. Register online at nebraskaagexpo.com to get your tickets in advance and save $5. The Nebraska Ag Expo is sponsored by Farm Credit Services of America and Ag Direct.
I think it's just vapor.
Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as one pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous. 5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens here. Mike Melby there. Husker Rewind and the Husker postgame basketball show. As they pull off a stunner today in Omaha. What's it called now? What's it? The
CHI Health Center.
Is it still CHI? Okay.
Yeah.
63-53, Nebraska wins it behind 22 points from Derek Walker, a really good night from Juwan Gary, and a great night, I thought, from Sam Griesel. Those three
18
together.
and 12 for Griesel.
They were all fantastic. They're all heroes, but you beat Creighton. It's so good.
Andy chimes in on the Sutter Raymond text line. It says NIL pays a little bit more after that win over the Jays.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think maybe if Fred survives this season, and this goes a long way for Fred surviving the season, because now it gives you a lot of optimism that this can be a solid basketball team. I think he's kind of found a formula, and a formula that we never would have guessed with Fred Hoiberg, right? Defense, rebounding, and 26% three-point shooting. If you would have said, if you looked at the stat line, you said that's Rutgers, that's not Nebraska, and Fred Hoiberg can't be coaching them.
Yeah,
that's impossible.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I would have said anyway.
Well, and the interesting thing, because a lot of the players, the top of the line guys, the guys that want to go to the NBA, they want it to be all about them at some point. And Fred talks about the selling point of his offense is it's a 5-out system, etc. But when you're brought in and you're given a role and you do that role very, very well, don't tell me that NBA scouts right now aren't looking at Juwan Gary and going, okay, I could work with that. Looking at Sam Griesel and going, he's not a point, but he plays it pretty well. Right. And he simply takes games over because he's 6'7", and Derek Walker. Oh, you know what? I can work with that. Mm-hmm. Casey Tominaga against Boston College. I know he's a smaller guy, doesn't weigh a lot, but man, if I can get him shots, there's so many. And Blaise Keita is another one.
I Blaise didn't play a lot today, but I think there's definitely a place for him against Big Ten centers. Not that Kalkbrenner wasn't that. I think he is every bit of that. But they went with Wilhelm Bredenbach off the bench more so than they did with Keita today. And then Walker got in a little bit of foul trouble. Yeah. So he's still set. I wonder what he could have done. He was 11 of 16, 22 points, 8 rebounds. But there were big stretches of the game where you did not see him in the game. So it was just so impressive. Nebraska's got some weapons, even offensively, but their weapon is primarily rebounding and defense. And I'm fine with that in the Big Ten.
Rebound, defense, effort.
Yep. In Nebraska again, 63-53. We'll talk more about it. I do want to talk about the coaches hired. Matt Rule, I guess the benefit of not having to coach a team in one of these championship games or, recruit and be fired from your former team is that you can kind of think about the team you're about to join. It feels like Matt Rule knew exactly what he wanted to do once he tore off that sweater. He said it in the press conference, I want to tear off this sweater and get to work at 5 a.m. Well, he did that. He has visited recruits everywhere, and he's putting together a staff fairly quickly.
I think he is. There's some really interesting pieces yet to go. So what we know, what the university has released so far, these are going to be position coaches, on-field coaches, part of the 10 full-time paid assistants. One that has been hired that's not going to count as one of the 10 on-field paid assistants is Corey Campbell. He's going to be the strength and conditioning coach. But your secondary coach is Evan Cooper. Defensive line coach is going to be Terrence Knighton. Special teams coach or coordinator is going to be Ed Foley. Running back coach, EJ Barthel, and then your offensive coordinator, and I believe he's going to help coach tight ends, is going to be Marcus Satterfield. And of those, I don't know much about any of them other than every one of them has worked under Matt Rule at least two of the stops, Temple, Baylor, and the Carolina Panthers in the past for Matt Rule. If you're looking at Marcus Satterfield and you go on message boards in and around South Carolina, he was not very well liked by the fan base in any way, shape, or form. And if you look at what his offense did outside of games versus Tennessee and Clemson, I'd be scratching my head as to why you would hire him as an offensive coordinator. But I'm not going to question anything Matt Rule does, man. The guy has built programs and built winners. I don't know if he's going to do it here or if it's going to turn into another show that we're sitting here a few years going, here we go again. But the one hire that I guess I'm scratching my head with is Marcus Satterfield. But again, the guy did manage to pretty much run up and down the field on 2 top 10 teams.
One of the things that Matt Rule said when he was introduced is he wasn't going to hire or go after celebrity coaches. But you're getting $7 million in the pot for your assistants. And I think maybe one or two celebrity coaches wouldn't hurt. You'd like to hire somebody that's kind of worth the money. And if it's going to be a relatively inexperienced staff, and Ed Foley, I understand he's 55. He's coached in college and the NFL for a long time, and he's been with Rule at Temple and Baylor and then at Carolina. But Terrence Knighton is fairly young. He played football. He was drafted in 2009 in the NFL draft. He'll be coaching the defensive line. You've got some younger guys in E.J. Barthel, who's not coached at the Power 5 level for very long, came from UConn and did a nice job there. And Evan Cooper, I think that was one of the big concerns that some Husker fans had when Scott Frost left UCF and kept all of his coaching staff and brought him to Lincoln, Nebraska. Now, there's probably a big difference with a coach that's had more Power 5 experience, and certainly that is the case with Matt Rule over Scott Frost. But he's hired some coaches without a lot of Power 5 experience. That would be the message board comment of the day from me.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, I'm not going to argue anything that he does. He's been a proven winner. All the numbers, I went in and broke down because there are a handful of fans that are wait and see. There's a pretty big chunk that I don't want to say they're drinking the Kool-Aid, but that are pretty happy about the hire. And there's some that are just, they keep going 500 record, never beat a top 25 team. So here's what I did. I went through, and Matt Rule has coached college football 7 seasons, 4 at Temple, 3 at Baylor. His overall record is 47-43. He's a 500 coach. That's a factual statement, slightly over 500. Versus top 25 teams, he has won over top 25 teams. He did not at Baylor, but when he was with Temple, he wound up going 3-6 versus top 25 teams, or 3-7 versus top 25 teams. Overall, he's 3-16. And in one-score games, which, as we know, Scott Frost has a world record for the best record in one-score games ever. Matt Rule's 12-15 in his 7 seasons. Now, the thing that I want to then pull out, since we're going to go with factual, actual numbers, let's eliminate those 2 first seasons, because he took over a Temple program that was a mess, and they never won. They never won.
Comedians played for Temple. Didn't Bill Cosby play for Temple?
Yeah.
So he joked about how bad Temple was back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and they didn't get any better. Temple's 2-10 in 2013, his first year. He goes to Baylor after back-to-back 10-win seasons, the second and third ever in the history of Temple, by the way. In 15 and 16, he goes to Baylor. In 2017, he goes 1-11. So let's take those 2 first seasons out from a numbers standpoint. Matt Rule in seasons 2, 3, and 4 at Temple and 2 and 3 at Baylor. 44-22 overall, 3-9 versus top 25, and 12-6 in one-score games.
Yeah.
I think those numbers are more fair to judge him by versus the people that continue to scream, oh, he's a 500 coach. He's a 500 coach. Granted, the numbers say that he is, but when you bring it all into context, that really isn't the case.
Well, I guess I'm going to judge him by how he recruits. And so far, the early returns are pretty good. They got a walk-on commitment from Cole Ballard over the weekend. He's a running back from Elkhorn, had over 1,400 yards, averaged 9.4 a carry, 32 TDs. Again, he's walk-on. He's visited Malachi Coleman. He went to Lincoln High and visited Benny Gainu. I believe that's Gainey, wide receiver, who I think has been considering Nebraska and Iowa State. Lincoln High never has a lot of Power 5 guys, but he might be one of them, and he made that visit. But he's been all over the state. Gunnar Gatula got a visit. Maverick Noonan got a visit. Caleb Benning has gotten his visit. And, I wish they would have latched on to Zane Flores earlier than they did. That might turn out to be a headache that Scott Frost really – somebody messed up on the previous coaching staff not offering and getting a personal relationship going with Zane Flores.
Yeah, not to mention the last 2 coaching staffs with this no-name, mediocre quarterback from TCU named Max Duggan. I mean, who would have thought that a kid growing up in Council Bluffs that's a Nebraska fan, why would you want him to come?
Riley was on him early, and then he just never finished the deal, and he ended up not choosing Nebraska. But I'm just, for me, these coaches are going to be judged by saving this class and how they develop in the long run. I like some of the hires, but I don't know. I mean, Donovan Raiola apparently is one of the guys, the only guy left that is apparently still being considered by Matt Rule, and he's the offensive line coach. And you wonder how much, at least I wonder, how much that has to do with Dylan Raiola. Do they still have a shot at Dylan Raiola if they keep Donovan Raiola on the staff?
Dylan Raiola has not signed anything yet. I know that.
Yeah, you can't until December. So those are my thoughts, basically, on the new staff. So
yeah, and the thing, there was an interesting comment, and I want to say it was Bellevue West's coach. As everyone that's listening right now, you do the same thing I do. You read everything you can. We're all diehard Husker fans. We love it. And sometimes the comments and everything get lost. You don't remember who wrote it, who said it. But one of the high school football coaches here in Nebraska, in either Lincoln or Omaha, made the comment to a reporter. I like Matt Rule. Do you know why? Because he's the first real, true football coach that I feel like has a plan at Nebraska since Frank Solich. That's saying something. Eliminate Mike Riley because we all knew what that was. But that's saying something when you're talking about Bill Callahan, whatever is great of an offensive genius and offensive line coaches where he's great and a genius, but local coach didn't think he had a plan.
Yeah, and I guess
Pelini didn't have a plan.
And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people, after that speech, maybe, or during that speech, bought in to the potential hire of Matt Rule. I mean, the potential future success of Matt Rule. And for me, it seemed like he had a plan. Like, he has thought this thing through. And, oh, by the way, I've executed this plan before. I did it at Temple, then I did it at Baylor, and then it didn't work in the NFL. And he said part of the regret is he thought he had more years, 7 years, to do it. So he went slow through the draft instead of maybe a little harder through free agency. But now with NIL, you can do it not only through recruiting, through free agency and keeping guys like Ernest Hausman.
Corey on the Starter Heyman text line says, Game 2 in Boulder, Deion's first game with the Buffaloes. We got to make it a sea of red. Corey, in case you have not heard, shortly after Deion was announced as the head coach at the University of Colorado, Colorado Athletic Director Rick George implored the fans to not sell their tickets to Nebraska fans for that first game of Deion Sanders' career as head coach of Colorado.
And athletic directors have done this.
That.
Athletic directors have been doing this for 20 years. Don't sell your tickets to Nebraska fans. They'll come. They'll tantalize you. They'll offer you a beer into their tailgate, and then they'll try to buy your ticket, and then we're screwed. So don't sell. And then somebody says, well, what's it going to take? $200? No, I'm not giving it to you. $400? What? You'll pay $400?
And
about $5
and a bratwurst.
Okay, sold. Because I get a bratwurst and a beer as well. I think it's very easily, because Nebraska fans will pay a lot of money to get in and see their team. But Deion, what do you think? What would be your excitement level if you were a Colorado fan today?
Oh, I'd be ecstatic, because whether they win or lose, this is going to be pure entertainment. You know it will be.
I think he'll do a great job.
Yeah.
Don't they? I think the playoffs, Division II college playoffs, begin. Jackson State, of course, is in it. And I think it starts mid-December. He says he's going to still coach in those games and then still recruit to Colorado.
Interesting little side note I read today. Luke Fickell plans on coaching Wisconsin in some capacity in their bowl game.
Really?
Yeah.
Remember the year that Barry Alvarez went back and coached one game? Other players have done.
Bob Stoops did it for Oklahoma.
Bob Stoops did it for yes. I always thought it'd be fun if Tom Osborne were in that situation, if he brought him back. Would he do it?
Why not?
I mean, Bo Pelini did it the year that Frank Solich got fired and Nebraska went to a bowl game. They didn't bring back Tom Osborne. They just let Bo Pelini, the defensive coordinator at that time, coach it, because I think they were trying to hoist him into the future of Nebraska football.
Frederick threw out that Frank didn't have a plan. Just so you know, Frederick, I didn't say that. One of the Nebraska high school football coaches said that. So,
well, he had the plan. It was stolen from Tom Osborne. The plan had already been developed.
It just didn't get executed very well.
If you see the plan on a daily basis and you're in every meeting where the plan is presented, and then you hear the plan in your headset, and then you go 60-3 and win 3 of national titles, you'd think the plan would be pretty embedded. But for some reason, it wasn't.
Yeah, the other thing that has come out on the recruiting trail from coaches and players that have talked to Matt Rule, this unwavering confidence, in a confident, not cocky way, that Matt Rule literally is going in and he's like, this is my plan. This is what our program's going to look like. This is where you fit into the program. This is what's going to be expected of you. Like, there is everyone that you talk to or that has been interviewed about what was the experience like when you got your visit from Coach Rule. They're like, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he expects from people, and he knows for a fact he's going to be successful. And that's one of those, like I said, it's coming across more as a extreme confidence that the plan will work versus I'm going to make the Big Ten change for me type of a egotistical comment.
You said something, he knows he's going to be successful. I think most really successful people know they're going to be successful. Whether they turn out to be successful or not is not necessarily the case, but that's the knowing. Like when LeBron is, on a heater, he knows he's going to make it. In fact, most great jump shooters or quarterbacks know they're going to make the great play. Running backs, people that are great at whatever they do, they know it. Whether it happens or not is a different thing.
Yeah.
But in his mind, I believe you're right. And there are also those coaches and people in life that are energized by working hard. They're actually provided energy. And I've never been one of those people, so it amazes me when I'm around those people. But they literally get energy from being around other people. And the more they're around other people, the more energy they get. And he seems like one of those guys. And he demands that from his coaches, that you really work hard. I don't know that I would necessarily want to work for Matt Rule, because he'd expect you to be at the, he wants you to be a grinder just like he is. Have you ever had one of those bosses where no matter how hard you try, you can't beat him to the office? I mean, he's already made the coffee. He's already in one of his, well, I guess I don't know anybody like that recently, but around here, that's true. DP is a crazy worker. But those guys that's a difficult standard to live up to. I think Bill Snyder had a little bit of that. I think Tom Osborne had a little bit of that. I think you're going to see, and that's been the accusation in a few cases with other coaches around here, that they're just not working hard enough. That's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, being a college football coach at the University of Nebraska is not necessarily an 8:45 to 3:15 type of a job. Not insinuating anything there. I'm just saying that if those are the hours you're going to put in, then you're only going to win 16 games in 4 years. But the one thing as well that comes across with Matt Rule, as well as the confidence and the thought process, I truly think with the coaches that he's picked, he made it abundantly clear, because somebody asked him in the opening press conference about, well, now that you're back in college, the NIL wasn't around. So now starting today, you've got to start learning about the NIL and the transfer portal. And Matt Rule's like, I've been studying this job and getting back into college for about a month and a half now. So like, he's very well equipped to understand what can be done, cannot be done. And I liked it where he kept saying, we're going to pay the guys. We're going to pay the guys. He goes, of course we're not. It's through the collectives, but you all know what I mean.
Yeah. I think NIL could make, we were talking about this. I don't know if we've ever said it on the air or said it recently on the air. It doesn't feel like a huge rebuild. I mean, the team that beat Iowa, of course, anybody can win the West. And then Purdue played Michigan for a while, pretty close yesterday. Nebraska could have beaten Purdue. You start to piece it together in your head. You think they're really not that far away, but you're talking about the Big Ten West, and they're not. No, it feels like if Casey stays, if you get the offensive line fixed, this team may not be too far away.
So I follow on Twitter the NCAA transfer portal Twitter account.
Is that a good follow?
It is, because I would say 80% of the kids that have announced and they retweet that, there's a Nebraska fan that will reply to them saying they're going into the portal. GBR, come to Nebraska. So, I mean, we need to have a roster size of about 500 to get all the kids here that it seems like our fans want to get here, but very interesting. It's going to be fun to see how this all plays out. Jake Peets is a name that we haven't mentioned yet that is not a part of the staff yet. I believe he wants to be, from what I read, and Matt would like him to be here, but there's some contractual things that have to get worked out.
And he's a Nebraskan. He's from Nebraska, coached with Sean McVay on that staff.
Yep.
He seems to fit the grinder mold. I think he wants to be a head coach someday. Does Jake Peets? It'd be nice to have that type of guy coaching your quarterbacks. We'll see if it works out. Biggest win for Nebraska basketball since, finish that sentence, today.
I will say, I think you're probably right. No sit Sunday versus Wisconsin.
Do you agree with that? 464-5685, Sutter Heyman text line, Honda of Lincoln hotline. We'll talk about Nebraska's big win over number 7 Creighton. I thought that the Iowa win for Nebraska on Black Friday might have been my Christmas gift. This might be better. No, this is better. Is this better?
This is better.
This is almost better. We'll talk more about Husker basketball, the basketball postgame show, along with Husker Rewind. We're kind of melding everything together. Mike Melby there. Tom Stevens here. Back with more after this.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
All I'm saying is there's a process that has to happen. And I don't know that in year one is when you need to be worrying about how many games you need to get to satisfy the fan base. I don't think that should be part of the equation in year one. I think what we should be interested in on the outside is that he lays a solid foundation that enables the program to grow from there.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike.
That's old school.
Yeah?
No school like the old school.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind, Sunday late afternoon, early evening, 5 to 7. Only one more time will we make the jump and wind up doing, what do we do, 1 to 3?
Right.
And that's going to be on December 20th.
That's due to when the Broncos might play.
Yeah, they play at 3 o'clock. So we'll do 1 to 3 on December 20th. Otherwise, 5 to 7 right here, each and every Sunday on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Right before the break, Tom and I were talking about the coaching staff and who's in and who's not. And one of the coaching positions that is still open that I expected to be filled a lot faster is the defensive coordinator. And I think, and this is I don't know anything, I don't have inside sources, but I think a phone call may have been made from Matt Rule to Jim Leonard.
I think so too.
When Leonard did not get the Wisconsin job.
That'd have been fun to do that to Wisconsin.
Oh, it would have been.
A guy that played at Wisconsin to steal him away. Because that's what it felt like for me, for Barry Alvarez to go to Wisconsin and steal everything from Nebraska and then put it in Madison and play the exact same identity football.
Kick our ass.
Yeah. So I thought we could get revenge just by taking Jim Leonard, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, he announced yesterday that he's going to come back and will be a part of Luke Fickell's staff at Wisconsin. And also just a little weird and uncomfortable, and it seems odd, but Jim Leonard, fresh off of getting a group of 5 team into the college football playoff last year and taking the Wisconsin job this year, he's going to coach to some extent in Wisconsin's bowl game. And I'm like, really? I mean, I get it, Jim Leonard, and the way the whole thing went on, but at the same time, it really makes me wonder then how many coaches, I have not paid attention to this. If you know, let us know on the Sutter Heyman text line, 402-464-5685, but how many coaches Luke Fickell is planning on keeping at Wisconsin from their current staff. Obviously, Jim Leonhard is one of them. But I truly think that Matt Rule may have made a phone call to Jim Leonhard, because I think it was yesterday that Leonhard came out and said, nope, I'm staying here. This is home. This is my alma mater. It's where I want to be. And that would have been a pretty big coup.
I think he was pretty mad, though. I think Jim Leonhard was really mad because somebody had promised him that he was getting that gig. And he had waited around for that. I know he's still in his 30s, low 30s, and he has many more opportunities to coach and head coach in college football. But I think he thought that was his gig, and he was preparing for that gig. And they said, oh, no, you're not the head coach.
I want to jump back to basketball just really quick. Andy chimed in on the Sutter Heyman text line and asked if, with the season now going the way it has over the last 3 games, is there a chance that they unredshirt Ramil Lloyd? And I see no chance that happens at all. I get it. He might be able to give him some minutes, but I don't know that that's a guy that they need necessarily. Jamarcus Lawrence didn't play today, but he's a guy as the year goes on, I think you're going to see get a couple of more minutes, and he's going to be a nice addition off the bench. But I don't see Ramil Lloyd being brought out of his redshirt year this season.
I do worry. I mean, people have talked about the depth that Nebraska has, and maybe that will prove to be true. And I think it's one of those teams that if you can get 3 guys going on any given night, you'll have a chance to win. Tonight, it was Gary, it was Walker, and it was Sam Griesel. Griesel with 18, and he had 12 boards. Then you had Derek Walker going 11 of 16 with 8 rebounds in limited minutes. He got in foul trouble. But Gary, we may not talk about Juwan Gary as much as we should. 5 of 5, 1 of 1 from 3, 9 rebounds, 12 points. That is a stat sheet. And the guy gives you tons of effort on the defensive side. He is just a problem. I think there was a scoring drought that might have gone 3 minutes. And you said to me, well, just get Gary going to the hoop. And, like a second later, there was Gary going to the hoop. He has that. He's not James Palmer good offensively, but he has that ability, kind of like James, to just take it to the rack when he wants to.
And, it's funny. You mentioned that we have, I think you said up to 3 potential James Palmer-esque type of people. And I know Juwan Gary was one that you talked about. Sam Griesel would be another one. The difference between anybody that's James Palmer-esque and James Palmer is most everyone else will be efficient in how they score. Or they just simply won't try to score every single time they touch the ball.
Yeah.
Because that's not what Juwan Gary does.
They're unselfish.
Yeah, this team is. And they were unselfish to a fault. Nebraska turned the ball over 13 times today. It's probably about 4 or 5 more than Fred would like to see. Well, it's 13 more than Fred would like to see. But there were 3 to 5 of them that were simply them being unselfish, trying to make an extra pass that, just put the shot up. You were there. You that one didn't need the extra pass.
And in fact, we've heard that conversation this week. Sam Griesel said he got a long, hard, stern lecture. I think it was from Fred Hoiberg, who said, you know what? We need you to score and need you. I know you have this philosophy to let the game come to you, and some players do. And I think that's a good thing to do sometimes. But when you're a star, you have to be the game. When you have to see what the flow of the game is, and sometimes decide to take over. He did today. He took over.
And the funny thing is, he took over letting the game come to him. He genuinely did. He didn't force anything. The one turnover he had in the first half, he drove into the lane. That's exactly what they want him to do. But then he was like so indecisive. And that's what burns him, is when he's indecisive. Drive into the lane. If your first option is covered, then you have option number 2. If that's it, don't try to look for a third. Try to draw a foul and put up a shot that either doesn't get blocked, but try to do something with it. You put yourself in a bad spot. Instead, he kind of, a little discombobulated, and he ultimately turns the ball over. And that's one of those where that type of play is where I think he's going to learn from it and get better. And obviously he is. The day he had today, 7 to 13 from the floor. The one big 3 when the shot clock was running down there late in the first half. 12 rebounds.
And 7 assists.
And 7 assists. And 2 steals.
And you talked about the turnovers, and I think it has been a problem with Sam. But now Derek is there to help him out. And Derek, now the high post, point center type thing, whatever that is. But there's a nice little high-low action going on with him and Griesel. They're both big enough where they can score at the rim. They're both very good passers. And I think it was easier to shut down Griesel when Walker wasn't there. You could kind of focus on him and take the ball away from him. Now it's not as easy. when you've got two guys playing off each other as well as they have.
Yeah, and boy, the chemistry between those two. It was funny. I think it was last year Alonzo Verge came in and one of the first press conferences he was at, he's talking about how Derek Walker's my guy. Like we just connected. And there was a good chemistry. And I think that speaks volumes about Derek Walker and his character, let alone his play.
Yeah.
But he's a guy, I mean, let's face it, Alonzo Verge was literally a guy that lived in a mirrored house. Okay. There was very rarely was there a time that he looked outside the mirror. And when he did, though, he looked for Derek Walker. And Sam Griesel is a guy that I don't know if he has a mirror in his house because it's all about everybody else.
Yeah.
He's such a caring and just genuine human being. And you've got Derek Walker, who's built such a good chemistry with both types, not necessarily of player. They are a different style of player, but both different types of personalities.
Yeah.
That tells you a lot about what Derek Walker's like off the court.
Yeah, and if he would have been available for the entire season, you wonder Nebraska wins maybe 2 or 3 more.
Well, if they win 3 more, they're undefeated.
Yeah,
and they're probably 17th ranked in the country.
Yeah, that's probably true. I feel comfortable saying they would have at least won 1 more. They would have won either St. John's, Oklahoma, or Memphis. One of those close games. For the majority of those games, Walker would have made a huge difference. But if I would have told you before the game that C.J. Wilcher will go 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, and that Keisei Tominaga 1 of 5 and 0 from 3, and Nebraska would shoot 25% from 3, I'd have said, yeah, they would have gotten beat by 15. Minimum 15.
I would have said they would have been within 10 to 15 points if Derek Walker went for 25 or more.
Right.
And instead, no, they win by 10. Walker goes for 22, and you have outstanding performances from Juwan Gary, from the minutes that William Breidenbach gave us. You and I both want to pull our hair out at times. With
you
Wilhelm,
have more hair to pull out
Wilhelm
than I do.
Breidenbach, but he goes 1 of 6 from the field, and the one that he hit, the time and score, the place in the game, the run that Creighton kept trying to make, that 3 was one of the biggest plays of the game to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those where he had turned the ball over or got it knocked away or forced a bad shot or just he looked out of sorts most of the time that he was in. But he kept fighting, and the battles that he had with Ryan Kalkenbrenner as well were like that was the more physical battle.
Yeah.
It was like Kalkenbrenner didn't want anything to do with Derek Walker.
Yeah.
But he was trying to take on Breidenbach, and Breidenbach continued to fight, continued to do everything he could to get anything out of that game that he could, and manages to knock down what I think was a really huge 3. Because I think Creighton had cut the lead to 3 at that point.
Yeah. Well, we keep talking about it from a Nebraska perspective. Look at it this way. Creighton has 5 guys that average double figures. Ryan Nemhart averages 13 and 5 assists a game. Trey Alexander, 11 and 5. Arthur Kaluma, 12 and 5. Baylor Shireman, 12 and 9. Kalkbrenner, 16 and 7. Nebraska held all those dudes down as far as the scoring. Kalkbrenner had 10. Shireman had 10. Nemhard, not a good game at all. And I think when he's good, he's one of the better point guards in the country. 3 of 13. He only had 6 points. Trey Alexander had 9 points. They had 2 guys in double figures. Nebraska's defense was suffocating at times.
Just a little tiny bit of information. Nebraska actually has 6 players currently averaging double-digit scoring.
Yeah.
Now, after today, that might change because Tominaga was one of them and having a whopping 2 points, and Wilcher with only 2 points. Both of them may have dropped down below 10. But going into the game today, Nebraska had 6. And Ryan Nemhart, too, not only he goes 3 of 13 from the field, 0 of 6 from three-point range, but more importantly, he's a guy that can go get rebounds as a guard. He only had 2 boards. He has 4 assists. They did a nice job distributing. 15 of their 20 baskets have an assist on them. So that's a fantastic percentage. If you're getting assists on 75% of your makes, then you were playing a great team basketball game. But he only winds up with 4 assists, but more importantly, he turned the ball over 4 times. 4 times as well. And that's from one of the best point guards in the country, as well as in the Big East.
Well, that is a resume-building win. Now, we might look back at this season and say, oh, yeah, remember when we thought Creighton was really good, number 7 in the country? Well, they're not so good. Sometimes that happens. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think Creighton will hang around the top 15 in the country. They may not be top 10 good, but that's a top 15 program. And I think, it testifies that you went to Arizona or played Arizona in Maui. Where was that?
Yep, in Maui.
And then at Texas, the second-ranked team in the country, and they shoot horribly, and they still could have won that game. What I'm saying is I'm giving more credit to Nebraska being pretty good than Creighton not being very good, because I still think Creighton's a really good basketball team that Nebraska just handed it to. Now, they might have been a little arrogant, a little cocky, because they didn't play their best basketball. They had some open looks that they didn't make, but most of that was due to Nebraska and how hard they played. I do look at the schedule, and we were wondering, can Nebraska get to 15? Can Nebraska get to 17? And maybe with the schedule and some resume builders like they had today, Creighton. And then you're at Indiana December 7th. They are 10th in the country. And then you have Purdue December 10th at PBA, and they're 5th in the country. And then Kansas State, probably, as you mentioned, could be in the top 25 by then. They've had a nice start to their year. Oklahoma, by the time, but since they played Nebraska, I don't think they've lost.
No, they haven't.
So they've been on a run as well. We might look back at that loss and say that was a pretty good loss. So we'll see.
From the standpoint of, you know what? When I know what the expectations were, I know a lot of people, Tom, you and I both were like, I think they might be able to get to 500. Like I do. I can see somehow they get to 15, 16 wins this year. And now you do what they did, winning at Creighton, winning 3 in a row, playing the way they are, showing what they're showing flat out. Defensive effort, attitude is going to be phenomenal. If they continue that night in, night out, I think the conversation of, hey, this is a big time resume builder.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if we're talking about, are we hoping to get into the NIT? Are we talking about seeding? Like, are we genuinely, if after today, there's the part of the big fan in me wants to be excited enough and go, there's a chance this year. I get it. It's a long way to go. I get it. The track record, but man, there's that little shimmer of hope that I always seem to have with Nebraska basketball, especially. Yeah. And could it be that we wind up in the tournament, a 6 or a 7 seed?
Oh.
I mean,
maybe win a game, something there. Of course, the only Power 5 program never to have won an NCAA tournament game. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, because I don't think it's ever been said aloud. But Nebraska is still in that category. But this looked like a team today that could win an NCAA tournament game.
It really, and the thing is, they look like a team that could win an NCAA tournament game in March, or a regular season game late in March. This didn't look like an early season win against a team that was still trying to figure it out. Creighton didn't shoot well. I get it. They missed open threes. I get it.
But you know what? When they did miss, Nebraska rebounded it,
yeah.
which you didn't used to see.
Yeah.
How many times did you remember playing Creighton in the past where they would miss a ton of shots, but then they would just always be there to have the putback? It was one and done. Nebraska was good at closing it out, and I think that's going to be a big part of their identity.
Yeah, they give up 10 offensive rebounds today, and for one of the first times this year, they actually got out-rebounded on the offensive glass. They gave up 10. They only got 5 offensive rebounds. But at the end of the day, they still out-rebound Creighton 42-37.
If they can beat Indiana December 7th, then you're going to have a crazy, kooky crowd at PBA on December 10th against Purdue.
If they beat Indiana, you're going to have a crazy, kooky Melby running around Lincoln. So
I don't even need it at this point. That's my Christmas gift. You don't have to get. I still kind of like something, just a little something for Christmas. But I'm not going to be demanding about it because Nebraska beat Iowa, and now they have beaten. I think I might hate Creighton more than Iowa. There's no doubt. I hate Creighton more than Iowa.
Boy, that's. That's got to be a number 1 for me. I dislike them both very, very much.
You know what? I've said it. We've talked about the J-Sker in the past. And it bothers me that you're a huge season ticket holder in football. And not that you don't care about Nebraska basketball, that you're just a bigger Creighton fan. Most of those people hate Nebraska basketball.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can hate or love Nebraska football and hate Nebraska basketball.
Off the Sutter Heyman text line, Jeff, I agree completely. We are getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. It was a great win, but we need to see more. you are 100% right. But while being 100% right, I like the spark that I see. I love what's selling me that we have a chance to be in every single game this year. We have a chance to, I'm not saying we're going to go to the NCAA tournament, win a game, get to the Sweet Side. I'm just saying there's a chance for this team to be better than anyone thought, and a chance for this team to continue and get wins. And the reason is because of what we see on the defensive side of the ball.
Should we take a call?
I think we should.
Hi there. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. This is Bruce from Oregon. All my family and stuff are tied to Omaha. I just wanted to say what a great win, for Husker Nation today. The basketball team, man, they, I don't care if they look sloppy at times, because it's just that way. Basketball is one of those things, like you could be up 10 and down 10 the next minute. But I mean, I thought they played good today. They were rebounding, and Walker, man, he was tearing it up against the big guy, man. I mean, probably Creighton's best player, I would guess, but I'm just happy. I'm proud of these young men, and I just hope that we just continue to keep learning from these games. And if we make a tournament, a postseason, that's all I really care for.
Yep.
So
Awesome.
thanks, guys.
Thanks for calling, Bruce. Great points too. It was Kalkenbrenner is one of their best players. He is a guy that is going to go off some nights, and he's going to have 30 and 15. He's a guy that can be dominant. He's a guy that's going to play in the NBA. Derek Walker just took him to school today. I mean, it wasn't even close. And again, this goes back to Derek Walker's game being so low key. How many spectacular windmill dunks did he have today against him? How many times did he posterize somebody today? That would be 0. How many times did he make a bucket that you're like, well, that wasn't exactly easy based on the move he had to make or where he had to take the shot from? Oh, by the way, he's 11 of 16, and he winds up kind of just taking the game over. And then that 2-man game he played with Sam Griesel, absolutely fun to watch.
We said this is going to be one of those teams where it's going to be a different guy every night. That might not be quite true. I think it's going to be Walker every night. I think Walker is going to give
to some extent.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's going to be Walker every night. And then what other 2 guys can he get to go with him? He got Jawan Gary tonight, and he got Sam Griesel, who's got to be that way. I think for Nebraska to win games, Griesel's got to fill up the stat sheet. He did today, 7 of 13. He gets the 12 rebounds. He had the 7 assists. He had the 18 points. It's going to have to be Walker every night, I think, in this league. And then a couple other guys have to go along with him. Unless he gets in foul trouble, just by being on the floor, he's going to get you 12.
Yeah,
12 and 10, probably.
And Jesse, so you're saying there's a chance for this team to save Fred Hoiberg's job? Yeah, I am. And I was actually thinking about touching on this a little earlier. I know we got to get to break, and we'll just do it after the break. I want to touch on Coach Hoiberg and Trev Alberts and maybe the conversation that took place before the season and where we're at 9 games in.
He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind combined with the Husker postgame show. Nebraska knocks off number 7 Creighton 63-53. We'll talk about it more after this.
The Ticket Water Cooler with Jake Bakoven and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
He's probably the best coach at Temple history. I'm not trying to lower but the narrative that he took over a mess at Temple is not correct. They had 4 straight head coaches use Temple to get to a Power 5 job.
Well, he did it at Baylor. It was the first time a coach went from 11 losses to 11 wins in 2 seasons or less.
Sounds Scott Frosty. Don't give one of those stats.
I'm just that's an interesting stat.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hungered in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
I grew up hearing that women are bad with money, but like many of you, I spent years paying bills, managing checking accounts, and taking care of my family. So turns out women are pretty good with money after all. And now I'm taking control of my financial future by saving for retirement. It's never too late to start, and there's a great website to help you. Check out WeSaySaveIt.org and jumpstart your retirement savings on your budget and your timeline. That's WeSaySaveIt.org. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. That's Tom Stevens. I'm Mike Melby. Last segment before we turn it over to Jake Bachhoven and Eric Strickland. They're going to come in and kind of continue on our little tirades and excitement and Kool-Aid drinking from the Nebraska upset win over number 7 Creighton. In case you were just joining us, where the hell have you been? But Nebraska wins it 63-53 over the Creighton Blue Jays.
Can I ask you, why do you maybe you don't feel the same way, but I really don't like Creighton. I mean,
no,
there's something
either.
that makes me boil over, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just I see sometimes the wine and cheese crowd at Creighton. It just seems like snobby. It's what I said before, that they love Nebraska football but hate Nebraska basketball, and I'm not saying, I mean, not every one of them is the same. Some of them just like the beauty of Creighton basketball. And by the way, it is beautiful to watch when it's working. Today it was not beautiful. Nebraska made them not beautiful. By the way, Nebraska played on the defensive end, but they usually are hitting more shots than they have today. I don't know. I'll shut that down. I don't know where
the macro started. That's what's going on. So love the macros when they jump in there. So Jesse earlier said there's a chance that this team could save Fred's job. And I think before the season, and I'm going off of what Trev Albert said in press conferences after Scott Frost was fired, et cetera. And you know, when everything came out about, you know, what were his requirements, and the USA Today sued him. And, you know, bottom line was 6 wins, get to a bowl game. I don't know that there is a get to 500, because what Trev said numerous times publicly is that he wants to see progress. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a plan, lay it out for me and then prove to me that the plan is going to work.
I wish this would have been the plan, though, originally. It felt like Fred's plan early on was, I'll do it the same way I did at Iowa State with great transfers. The problem is everybody is in the transfer market these days.
Yep.
Iowa State was like one of the first to try it. So they kind of got the pick of the litter. Now even Kansas and Kentucky are taking the best transfers in the country. But I do think you can do it with experienced transfers like Hoiberg is now. Like Emmanuel Bandamel has been around basketball for a while. He knows. Blaise Keita, probably not there yet, but physically he's there, and he could certainly make a difference on any team. Sam Griesel has been in the NCAA tournament. He knows what it's like. He's 28 years old or whatever he is. I think he's 25 right now. He's very experienced, and that's one of the reasons you like him. It feels like this is just, and obviously Derek Walker has been around college basketball for a long, long time. Get experienced players and then throw in some talent. I think this is rinse and repeat. I think guys will see this, and this is the way Hoiberg should have built it to start with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Corey, thanks for the kind words on the show. Byron made a great point. Casey and Wilcher are both off, and we beat the number 7 team by
Incredible.
10. That's rare, because that's not going to happen very often,
ever,
if at all, but it did today, and we still figured out a way to win. And that's the one thing that is so fun about this team, and it was something that I think you and I have touched on off and on throughout the first 9 games of the season. Granted, now with Walker, he is going to be that guy, but man, you go up and down that lineup and you're like, yep, he could be a difference maker in a game. He could be a difference maker in a game. And let me bring it back up here. I want to get back to the box score, because there's a couple of guys that didn't play a ton of minutes that have been that guy. Denham Dawson was that guy earlier this year, where he had 8 points, wound up with a couple of steals and like 4 rebounds, but he only played 12 minutes. Blaise Keita is another guy. He has gone off. He's had games where he had the other night he had 8 points or 5 points, 8 boards, 4 of those boards offensive, 2 assists, plus he drew 2 charges. And you're just like, oh my, that was such a workmanlike effort. And then Casey has 23. It's such a different role for every guy every night. They do what they're supposed to do. If they're not working very well, they stop trying to do what their role is offensively.
And they don't mope about it.
They don't mope, and they go play defense.
Right. I think that we've seen that in the past, and I'm not pointing at anybody. I think a lot of teams this happens to, that if you're not hitting shots, your defense suffers. I mean, it's just your effort suffers. With this team, I think they've decided their identity is going to be, hey, we're always going to play hard defense. It doesn't matter what we're doing as far as shooting threes or making shots. It's going to be non-negotiable that we play hard and rebound. And you can win games. It wasn't like that's what excites me about this win today. Nebraska beating number 7 Creighton 63-53 is that I felt like Nebraska could have played even better. I don't think this is their ceiling. Again, nothing from Wilcher, nothing from Tamanaga. Yeah. If you did get anything from those guys, this could be a blowout win.
Yeah. Yeah, it very well could be. And you know what it could be? It could have been a 90-67 win like the Nebraska women's team today. Jazz Shelley finally got going.
That was awesome.
From the 3-point line. She hit 6 of 10, and they roll Maryland. They're down by 5 at half, and they win by 23.
That was so cool because I thought with the loss to Virginia Tech, I wondered where their confidence was. And so it's the great thing about a baseball season and sometimes a basketball season. You lose on Tuesday, come back on Sunday, and you can win. And that's what happened with Nebraska basketball. There were times already we thought, well, that loss to St. John's wasn't good. That loss to Oklahoma was pretty bad. And I'm not sure. That loss to Memphis. This could be a really bad season to, hey, you beat Creighton. This is a pretty good basketball team. I mean, that's the great thing is, last week it's terrible. This week it's pretty good. And you're optimistic if you're a Nebraska basketball fan, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we may go to Indiana and we may have one of those nights and get beat by double digits and maybe not really be in the game. Could happen. But at the same time, I kind of struggle to see us getting really blown out unless things really go sideways, simply because if we bring that defensive effort and the attitude that we brought to play Creighton, that travels.
Yeah. Defense travels, rebounding certainly travels, and Nebraska, again, the ceiling, I think, is higher, at least, than it is right now. I mean, I don't think they're doing anything that can't be done almost every night, especially if you're going to get those kind of performances from Derek Walker. I do want to talk briefly about the college football playoff. Announced earlier today, Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, after their thrashing of Purdue, and Georgia did the same to LSU. Then you have TCU after a loss, a little controversial, to Kansas State, although that was a very close game. And Ohio State, the last game they played was against Michigan before the Big Ten championship game. They didn't have to play, and they're in the college football playoff. What do you think?
I don't mind that. I would have minded a lot had Alabama made it. And not just because they're Alabama, and I hate Alabama.
I hate Alabama as well.
A 2-loss team I don't think belongs in there, regardless. So, and then Randy chimed in and said, hey, one of the best, his Christmas present was not only beating Creighton today, but then, go back 9 days ago and we beat Iowa as well. So
those together, I mean,
agree.
It's like, I don't know which gift I would open first, the Iowa gift or the Creighton gift. I think I would like the Creighton gift last just because you would be way more surprised. Like if I told you Nebraska beat Iowa on Black Friday, you thought, well, that's possible because Iowa can't score. I mean,
I would have gone, so Nebraska's offense outscored Iowa's defense. Good, I could believe that.
But if I would have told you Nebraska beats number 7 Creighton, you're still laughing until the game ends, and you're going, wait a minute, you weren't kidding.
I literally would have been going, is this a drinking game?
Yeah. How many shots do I have to take?
Yeah.
The first one is believable, Nebraska beating Iowa. Nebraska beating Creighton, especially this year, was not believable. It's not something that was going to happen. And then the game started to be played, and you saw how it was panning out, and you thought, well, Creighton's not shooting it very well. They're having a kind of a shooting night like they did against Texas. Maybe that carried over. Maybe there is a thing called a hangover even after a close loss, and it just was never good for Creighton. But Nebraska, again, has a lot to say about that because they actually play defense on this team, and then they rebound.
They do. Well, and the effort especially on the glass, is what is more noticeable about this team than any Fred Hoiberg team that we've seen.
Okay. Quickly. So Georgia has number 3. So they go 1-3, 2-4.
No, 1-4, 2-3.
1-4, 2-3. Georgia plays Ohio State. How do you see that going down?
I think Georgia's that's gonna be an ugly game. I think Georgia wins probably by 17.
Yeah, I think Georgia is a really good football team.
Yep.
And Kirby Smart was mad after that win, 50-30. He was mad. He thought the tackling was really shoddy. He went all Lou Holtz on that one. So you got Ohio State versus Georgia in the Peach Bowl, and then you got Michigan versus TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, and then the AT&T national title game will be played January. Who's your just say it now so we have it on record. Who's your team to win it all?
I think Georgia wins it all, but I there's something about TCU and Max Duggan that I like, and I would not be that one I say will be won by a field goal. I don't know who wins.
I think I don't think they're the best team in the playoff, but I think Ohio State gets hot. I think that loss.
You think they knock off Georgia?
I think that they get hot and they win the whole shebang. Just because I want to say it. I mean, if I'm wrong, nobody remembers it. But if I'm right, maybe people will remember.
Going down that same path, then I do. I'm gonna go down that same kind of weird path. I'll take TCU. I know they probably will not get by Michigan, but I just with what I watched yesterday from Max Duggan and
that's
the way
a cool
that
story.
team plays,
he should have been in Nebraska.
Should have been.
Mike Riley tried, but didn't close
well.
the deal. But he wasn't normally a guy that ever closed the deal as far as winning or recruiting was concerned. We are leaving, but we're leaving on a high note. Nebraska basketball, and this is the Nebraska basketball postgame show and Husker Rewind. We combine the two. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens, but it continues. Bach will be here. Strickland will be here, and they'll talk more about Nebraska's fabulous win today. And they'll do that coming up. We'll see you next week. I guess I have to play the music, so say something for 60 seconds.
Me, I don't know how to. You know me, I cannot talk for that long, Tom. It's totally impossible.
I forgot there was still an outro to the show.
It's such a bittersweet symphony, too.
That's brilliant.
In case you have not heard, Coastal Carolina hired former Nebraska offensive coordinator Tim Beck today as their head coach. Deion Sanders is now the head coach at the University of Colorado, and Colorado AD Rick George implored his fans not to sell the tickets to Deion's first game to Nebraska fans, and I hope Nebraska fans buy every single one of them.
I'm rooting for Colorado a little bit, and I know they're a longtime rival, and we should hate them, but now that Deion's there, it might be cool to be a Colorado fan, at least when Nebraska's not playing
them. For that game, I want 50,000 Nebraska fans in the stadium in Boulder.
That game just got a lot tougher. Deion.
It did.
Primetime is there.
Absolutely.
We're leaving. Bach and Stricker on the way. Talking about the good news. Nebraska's win over Creighton. See you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese Beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive Certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
All I'm saying is there's a process that has to happen, and I don't know that in year one is when you need to be worrying about how many games you need to get to satisfy the fan base. I don't think that should be part of the equation in year one. I think what we should be interested in on the outside is that he lays a solid foundation that enables the program to grow from there.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse? Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon. Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, the big one, all the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just... In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City mission on our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
The Ticket Water Cooler with Jake Bakoven and Enrique Alvarez.
Probably the best. I'm not trying to lower, but the narrative that he took over a mess at Temple's not correct. They had 4 straight head coaches use Temple to get to a Power 5 job.
Well, he did it at Baylor. It was the first time a coach went from 11 losses to 11 wins in 2 seasons or less.
Sounds Scott Frosty. Don't give one of those stats. Please.
I'm just saying, that's an interesting stat.
Welcome into the Tickets Basketball Postgame Show, featuring Derek Pearson and former Husker and 9-year NBA vet, Eric Strickland.
Strickland for 3! He's going to go out of here as the Big 8 tournament champion.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome into the Hoops Post-Game Show here on 93.7 The Ticket. Rolling right over from Husker Rewind today, as those guys did a good job immediately after the game, getting you fired up for the Nebraska victory over Creighton. It's finally been done in the Fred Hoiberg era. Nebraska beats Creighton 63-53. Bigger than that, of course, is that Creighton is a top 10 team. Nebraska kind of puts themselves on the map for this season as a team to be reckoned with, as a team that is going to be difficult for anybody to come in and overlook them at this point. Great performances all around, especially from Derek Walker. You could tell big difference when he was in the game. Only played 23 minutes, had 22 points, very efficient as he normally is. Sam Gracel, big game as well, 18, 12, and 7 as he neared in on a triple-double there. But just a lot of fun, and so we want to get Eric Strickland, the Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet's thoughts on this as Nebraska takes care of those pesky Blue Jays over there. And maybe I shouldn't say pesky. That makes it sound like they're just kind of an ant. They're the giant. They're the top 10 team. Nebraska gets a top 10 victory.
Well, absolutely. I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Do I need to mute?
No, you're good. You're good now.
Okay. So you can finally go on the schedule when you look at Husker.com, and you can finally go on there. And when you look down the schedule, it's going to see loss, win, whatever. And you can look in the win column finally after almost 18 years, 14 total since they won like an NIT game. It's something crazy like that.
In Omaha, yeah.
Right, in Omaha. And so, for me, it was important for me to be at that game because I have never lost to Creighton in my whole tenure. And I wanted to just be an inspiration and cheer the guys on. And it was great just to see all aspects of the game come together in one of the most important times, which is in a rivalry game. So, some of the players that you would have hoped to have played better, which is CJ Wilcher and even Tamanaga didn't play like his normal self, but they showed poise. They showed just the ability to respond, but not necessarily get lost in the whole shuffle. When the crowd got going for Creighton, when the intensity picked up, they didn't succumb to the moment like they have in the past. And that's why I say, Bach, man, a lot of those games that they play, you can tell probably I'm losing my voice. I was yelling so loud. A lot of those games that they played in their schedule has actually been a benefit to them coming into this type of game. A rivalry game, one that's going to require you to be physical, one that's going to require you to do multiple switches, be on your game with regard to the game plan. You had to be able to help weak side, because that's what Creighton does. They're really good at moving the ball and getting the ball around and finding your weak points and your vulnerable points. But Nebraska was good on their recoveries, their helps, some of the bigs taking charges. All those things worked today. And then when it was time to get downhill and to find those open slots, it was Walker, it was Griesel, it was Gary, and they handled the press. Creighton couldn't throw no press on them that no other team like St. John's or anybody else could. So to them, it looked like it was nothing, when you really needed to break the press.
Yeah, well, that was interesting. At the end of the game, Creighton did try to make a little bit of a comeback, and Nebraska looked like they still might need a little bit of work on that. Maybe had Creighton known that maybe they'd go a little bit earlier to it, or maybe that, something they should have scouted a little bit more to put that press on early. But it was just one of those things where, like, Nebraska's defense was just so overwhelming for a majority of the game, but they did allow Creighton to have some open threes. And it was just like, okay, when are these going to start falling? And then Nebraska's going to have to adjust. And they just never did. Were you a little bit underwhelmed by Creighton, or do you think it was just kind of an off shooting night for them? I mean, they didn't shoot particularly well against Texas either, and they kept that game closer than what they kept this one.
Yeah, I would say that I expected them to shoot the ball a lot better. I will say that they weren't able, whenever they were able to get comfortable and to just settle into a shot, they made it. So yeah. The intensity, the challenge, the pressure coming off of a recovery or off of a help situation, they had to speed up their shot a little. They just weren't able to just kind of in the past. I've seen these Creighton teams just when they work that ball around with, because they're patient and they're going to force you to have multiple effort plays. And if you don't do that, you're going to give up an extra attempt. Another thing that they did tremendously well is put bodies on people. They were actually body to body. I think they really went and looked at film and understood what they're going to have to do. But when they didn't do it, Creighton made them pay with kickouts and knocking down threes. That used to happen to them in the past. So, Bach, it goes back to this, man. They've been doing something that is no Nebraska team has done in a while, and that is win multiple rebound battles. And that's what they did tonight. They had 43 and Creighton only had 37. And holding this Creighton team, who is a very capable three shooting team, to 21, 22%, 35% from two, and shooting themselves 50%, but still didn't shoot the ball well from three. But they were able to get away with it, didn't have to shoot the free throws, were able to get the ball up and get some easy opportunities at the end of the game to close the game out, and did not have to do it from the free throw line because they're still shooting 60%, and that's going to be bad if they can't really correct that.
Yeah, Nebraska, and like you said, not a whole lot of shots from the line anyway. 4 of 7. This was a game, not a whole lot of shots for the line for anybody. 3 of 5 from Creighton. There was a few plays too where each team, there's like a run of like and ones there. So it was not a free throw type of game. But what's impressive is this is not really like a fluke win for Nebraska either. This was not one of those, they just kind of hit a few shots and got back in the game, or went on a run that you don't normally see from them. They just kind of played the pace that Nebraska was going to have to play to win this game, which is a low-scoring battle. Creighton averages 82 points a game, or 81. Yeah. I mean, they're really they average over 80, and they were held to 53 today. And then, like we said, on that three-point shooting, 10 of 40 from beyond the arc. That's 25%. And if you take out Farabella, who was their leading scorer and the only guy that was really knocking down threes today, he was 5 of 9 from beyond the arc. If you take that away, they were 16% still on over on 30 shots. So, I mean, it's definitely a combination of Nebraska's great defense and Creighton just failing to knock down shots. Again, that's a problem that came over from that Texas game. So, maybe there is a little bit of got them at the right time or something like that. I mean, but again, as you look at this Creighton team, they have an ability to play so much better. They're a top 10 team for a reason. They're a Final Four pick for a reason, but it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a fluke. Nebraska looked like the better team today. I'm not saying they are. They just looked like the better team throughout that game.
That's absolutely true, Bach. Throughout the whole game, they looked like they belonged. They looked like they belonged in that game. They looked like they were better than what they probably showed in some of the other situations. But the lessons that they learned, I always said coming into this game, Bach, I said, if they can get one or two of these next 3 games, that can set the tone for what this season can be for Nebraska. It really could, man. It really can just change. Because here's the thing we talked about on the block. We talked about this. We talked about the fact that in this same situation last year, coming into this game, the loss that they had at North Carolina State set the tone for what the season was going to be. I think this same game against a tough road opponent like Creighton could actually give you the confidence, to give you the poise, to give you the ability to take it and run it uphill for some success for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's fascinating about this win is I mean, this was a team that came in, let's be honest, Fred Hoiberg's been struggling to get to 10, 11 wins every year. This is probably the most least ballyhooed team of all of those teams. It just hadn't worked so far under Hoiberg, and they just kind of scrapped together some pieces, but there's not really the 5-star or somebody that you think is definitely playing in the NBA, and so this team had very low expectations. Where does it go from here? After you beat a top 10 team on the road, and let's be honest, they've also beat 2 ACC teams back to back. I mean, I don't think this is a fluke. I think this is a team that's going to win a few conference games, and so you kind of get to that discussion of, okay, well, how's the Big Ten look? How can can you count Nebraska out against really anybody in the Big Ten? And so you get back to your kind of protecting home court. It's going to be so nice as we can kind of change our outlook for the season, just like, yeah, we'll be happy with whatever we really get. And if you get to 14 wins, and that'll be enough improvement. And like you were kind of saying before the season too, maybe get out of that play-in bracket for the first day of the Big Ten tournament. I'm not saying that, we should expect an Elite 8 team or anything like that, but it's like this dark cloud is lifted off of Nebraska basketball today. I mean, that's how significant this victory is you can start, you're allowed to, you're allowed to dream. You're allowed to kind of think that this team can put it together. And again, too, I don't know if this is, I don't know how advantageous this is. It kind of depends on the team, but the fact that you don't know who's going to put it together against you on a given night from Nebraska, it's going to be difficult to prepare for. I was looking at, if you take Griesel, you take Walker, and you take Gary out, 3 players, Nebraska scored, I think, 11 points outside of that. And then, you're coming off.
That's just tonight, though. That's
tonight.
the crazy thing about what you said. That's just tonight, because then it could be Casey Tamanaga go for 20 tomorrow, or the next time they play. But go ahead.
CJ Wilcher was off tonight. He can go off. Animal we've seen, at times. So it's going to be fun. I mean, and it's going to be hard to prepare for this team. That being said, do you think that there are some guys that, and I heard Mike and Tom talking about this beforehand, maybe you're going to get a different 3 every night. At this point, with just the improvement you've seen from Derek Walker, what he brings to that team, is he a constant? Is he a guy that you don't know who you're going to get it from, but Derek is going to be one of them?
I think Derek is a constant. And just look, but here's the constant thing that we tend to forget. And it's also the importance of what they were missing. And now they're starting to get used to him being around. They know how to play with him and through him. They're finding him in specific spots on the court that gives him an advantage against whoever it is that's covering him. He's playing like a man amongst boys. And then you saw Nebraska identify the mismatches, and then Griesel began to run the ship, which is something that I was quite impressed with tonight, because he began to control the team, get them into the stuff that they felt they could use in order to get buckets, put guys into the post, get guys and take times and wait on the pick and roll to get to the spot that he wanted it to get to, not them forcing him to get it to a specific spot on the court, higher out, past the three-point line. He was really controlling the game and getting it to a spot to where he knew he could put stress on the defense. And that was getting it into the post. Okay, you're not coming. Let me take a step off. Derek, come here. Derek comes, and he's turning the corner. And that's where you saw great finishes on the weak side from him, which was some great buckets that alleviated some runs that Creighton was trying to make.
And what was it about Derek tonight that, the Cockburner is like he's one of the Big East's best players, and you couldn't tell it tonight because Derek just owned him. Derek really was it mostly just off the dribble that you saw? He's just maybe a bit more polished. What was it about that matchup that Walker had so much success with?
Well, it's not about the matchup. It's just that Derek, and this is why he shoots. This ain't nothing new. This is what he was doing to everybody last year. It didn't matter if it was Edie. It didn't matter who it was. He was going at their stomach and he was going at their belly. He has great counters and he can use both hands. And this is what I'm hoping to see a little bit more out of Wilhelm. Wilhelm is struggling right now, but I'm hoping we can get him going because we're going to need him. We're going to need him to spell Derek and not have a tremendous drop-off when you get the big men that come in. Obviously, this game was probably not for Keita just because of the read, react, respond, and he was able to give him a blow because of foul trouble. That was really what they was best used for Keita tonight. But other than that, you saw when they wanted to go defense, they had Gary playing the 5. They wanted to go defense with a little bit of free throw shooting. They took Walker out to give Gary the opportunity and then threw Casey in there. So they've got an ability to do that, to throw multiple types of lineups at you at different times to get what they want to get.
Yeah, and then I will say this, though. Creighton did a good job knowing, or definitely scouting, obviously, Tamanaga. He didn't even get a shot off from beyond the arc. That's how close teams were playing with him. Did you feel like just that, because sometimes, obviously it's great when the threes transition to on the scoreboard. But do you think Tamanaga's just the fact that they had to have somebody glued to him that helped with spacing tonight or not too much? Because he's got to find, that's going to be, if he goes off a few more times, the teams that have the defenders and have the scouting done well, I think you're going to see more of that.
Well, yeah, they're going to do that. That's why, in talking with some of the people around the program, there's been discussions that I've had with them talking about the fact that when they're watching film, and I've even talked about it on the block, when they're watching film, they don't watch and actually I had a short discussion with Fred about how they are preparing the team in this same specific manner. And that they're basically teaching the guys that each situation, each game is uniquely different. It's not going to be a cookie cutter. You're not going to be able to come in and get the same looks, but based on the way that the team is going to play you, whether it's with pressure, whether it's playing off, whether they're showing on pick and roll situations, how they're doing all of those types of things in the defensive side of it, that is going to change and determine how you're going to shoot and where you're going to get your opportunities. And that's the stuff you need to practice on for that specific game, not total, but that specific game. It's going to be different from when they play Edie and when they play Trace Jackson Davis. You see what I'm saying? And the way that they're going to cover. So, and the abilities of the defense in that manner. So that's what you got to look at going forward. And hopefully they'll be able to continue to scout well and perform well.
Well, guys, we're going to have fun all night, but we're not going to go all night. You guys can have fun as well. But I think the whole state, unless you're wearing blue, is partying because Nebraska gets the victory over top 10 Creighton. Probably the biggest victory, and I don't really need to say probably the biggest victory in the Fred Hoiberg era. As we mentioned, kind of changes the way that you perceive the season and think about the games coming ahead. So we'll have plenty more to talk about. We'll take a quick break. This is the Hoops Postgame Show brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Thanks once again for them for sponsoring. We'll be right back here on 93.7 The Ticket.
It's tailgate season. Why would you bounce around from place to place for all your beverage needs when you could have it all in one place? Wine, Beer, and Spirits has everything for your parties with their 3 locations in Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. It's the largest liquor store in the state, and here's the best part. You can get a drink from their bar and walk around with it as you shop for all your tailgate necessities. Locally owned and operated, it's Wine, Beer, and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
These days, there are more reasons than ever to treat yourself to a great haircut at Great Clips with the online check-in app. So tell us, why do you check in?
I check in because I'm tired of hat hair. I check in because we all need a cut.
I check in so I can feel like me.
And I check in so I look good for you.
No matter why you check in, you'll check out with a great haircut and save time with our online check-in app. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts, guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Lincoln. Hopcat is your pregame headquarters for basketball and volleyball all season long. Hopcat is located at 6th and P in the Haymarket. To plan your next trip to Hopcat, visit www.hopcat.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket every Saturday morning now in our new time. We're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
You spend a lot of time on your feet. At work, at the gym, on the golf course, it can be exhausting. Are your feet as comfortable as they could be? Brown Shoe Fit delivers all the sizes and widths that you can imagine and that most other stores can't compete with. If you're looking for a specific brand, they have it. New Balance, Brooks, Keen, Clarks, Echo, Rockport, Merrill, many more. All sizes, all widths. Stop trying to squeeze into your shoes and sacrificing comfort. Find your next pair of shoes for any endeavor at Brown's Shoe Fit, just south of 66 and Q in Lincoln. Guys, Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping has changed my life. I'm healthier, I'm more fit, I have more energy, and oh yeah, I've lost a bunch of weight, almost 100 pounds. Now's the time for you to take control of your health and join the Farrell's 10-week challenge. The program combines kickboxing, strength training, and nutrition to set you up for success. And ticket listeners, you can get in for half off. The next challenge starts on January 7th at both of their locations, 40th and Yankee Hill, and their brand new spot at 70th and Vine. Get all the info at fxblincoln.com. Join today. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest, quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Back to the Tickets Basketball Postgame Show, featuring Derek Pearson and former Husker and 9-year NBA vet, Eric Strickland, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back here on the Hoops Post Game Show. I'm Jake Balkovin. I'm with the Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet Eric Strickland, as we break down Nebraska's huge victory today. Again, probably the biggest of the Fred Hoiberg era, 63-53 over heated in-state rival Creighton, who came in today's game number 7 in the nation, walk away 6-3. Now their first loss at home. For Nebraska, they improved to 6-3 and now 1-1 on another team's home court. So hopefully you can kind of keep pace with that throughout the season. If you can win half of them on the road, that would be great. But more importantly for Nebraska is just to beat Creighton. I mean, and we will. I know, like I've been saying so far, it's fun to kind of get your thoughts on the rest of the season, how that will play out. But there's very little times over the last 12 years, it seems like. I'll go back. I think 2010 was when this series just kind of took a turn on its head and Creighton started winning all of them. There's very few times to celebrate. And Nebraska finally is your state champs. They already beat Omaha, now taking care of Creighton. It's good to be on top again, and Creighton fans might laugh at that a little bit and say check the rankings or something like that, but go ahead and check the scoreboard. Huskers won, and they won soundly. You mentioned it. You never really had a problem with Creighton, but how hard has it been to watch Nebraska fall to Creighton? I mean, they feel like the little brother of a program that doesn't even have a football school.
Man, it has been so frustrating, and I think that's why I wanted to go today. And you know, it was a blessing to be able to just sit behind the bench because, you know, every now and then you're able to look somebody in the eye and see, are you serious about it? Do you really want it? Do you believe? You know, and then to hear some of the stuff that the staff is able to convey, then that gives me a lot of confidence to know that they're hearing the messages for winning basketball. And so it was good to be there in the building to watch that happen. Like I said, it was an important moment for Nebraska in their program to, set the tone for what their expectations are or what they thought they were going to be, and to be able to show them that their capabilities, their true capabilities, when you do this. And then you could tell that they're going to get their eyes on certain things within the game that they didn't do well, so they can grow from that. And that's what you've got to appreciate about this team. I mean, listen, they shot 42% in the first half. For the last 2, maybe 3 games, at least 2 for sure, they've come out in the second half and shot better than what they did in the first. That means you're executing. You're doing what you're looking at what they're giving you, and you're going and taking great shots based on what the defense is trying to do to you. And so they're doing that, even though they didn't shoot the 3 very well tonight.
Well, it's interesting, though, too, because they didn't again, this was, and it's because Nebraska had the lead the whole time. They didn't, I think, feel forced to try to match Creighton with their shots. Part of it because Creighton wasn't hitting their threes, but I mean, just the disparity of shots taken from beyond the arc. Again, Creighton with 40 shots tonight beyond the arc, Nebraska with 12. I mean, there's so many stats that you look at going into this game that you go, I don't know how that's going to turn out. I mean, generally, with the way that people look at the game of basketball today, analytics and all that, that's a lot more shots, points that you're taking shots at for Creighton, and Nebraska just never really had to match it. And it's interesting too, because they didn't get their guys going, right? I mean, we think typically, and we'll say it throughout this year, we've said it before, maybe we'll say it again. Hopefully this kind of changes our mind about it, but sometimes this game is just about the 3-point shot. And if Nebraska, we've said it before, doesn't have Wilcher or Tamanaga really going off, then they might just lose that battle and lead them to losing the game. Well, they didn't have either of those guys. This defensive tenacity, of course, they brought in Adam Howard in the offseason to try to get that change. They have a lot of length. They've got some good perimeter defenders. is this a wake-up call to Nebraska's identity to a degree as well? Do you think that's or do you think that's kind of already been how they've been playing? Is this kind of lockdown defense? Again, part of it is Creighton had some open shots and missed them, so you'll see other teams maybe do a little bit better against it. But defense, they always kind of say this: if you build your program on sharpshooting and all that, guys are going to have off nights. But if you build it on defense, that's something that you can kind of control, and you're not going to have an off night as easily.
Yeah, you can actually win any situation if you're able to get stops. If you're able to get stops, secure rebounds, and you actually shoot good free throws. Because a lot of games, especially when you're not shooting the ball well, are going to come down to execution. It's going to come down to who can get stops. And then ultimately, when the lead is either close or behind, who's going to make free throws in order to either secure the game, get back into the game. Because anytime you have free opportunities when the shot clock is stopped to be able to put points on the board, it's advantageous to you, whether it be offensively or defensively. So, listen, Ryan Nembhard has been a problem for Nebraska in the past. He's a tremendous point guard. He does a lot of different things, but for him to only have 4 assists, which he's a pass first type of guard, very capable of scoring. 4 assists with 4 turnovers. That shows you that they're doing something. They're in passing lanes. They're recovering. They're understanding what Creighton's trying to do, and they're reacting upon the moment that they get to a certain spot. So a lot of those cross court, a lot of those weak side passes, at some point in the game, they were starting to get to them. So Nembhard has been a problem for them. I think Kaluma could have been a problem for them and has in the past had shown ability to be a problem. They handled him very well, 0 for 8 tonight. But then also Shireman, I was talking to Sam Griesel about Shireman. I was like, so what's it going to be? Is it going to be you or him? Who got the better of this deal, us or them? You know what I'm saying? Two local kids. Who got the best of this deal? I think Griesel showed tonight that Nebraska won that one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes this especially sweet, and not to, target one kid individually. I think a lot of us understand why Baylor Shireman made the decision he did. And then another, if you don't understand, another part of that could be NIL money that Creighton was willing to put in there. That might have factored in as well. But obviously, they're a team in position with his addition to get this top 10 ranking preseason. And so that's kind of what makes it all the sweeter, is because Nebraska, I mean, it kind of got out. It was known. Baylor Shireman was their top target in the transfer portal. And he still had a solid game, 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists, but 4 steals too. I mean, he's a good player. But he didn't go off or anything. And it kind of felt like too, like Creighton, I don't know. Again, part of it's kind of just trying to figure out where Creighton is going as a team. I don't know. They didn't seem to have like a go-to player or somebody to kind of get them out of that little hump. I mean, they would make a few runs. Nebraska would shut it down quickly, never let the energy of the building kind of rise up and gain momentum and take over. So credit to Nebraska for doing that. But it was also just intriguing that Creighton didn't really have, Shireman, they just kind of played through the offense. So it wasn't necessarily a go-to guy to get Creighton back into the game, and Nebraska just never let them back in. So, all right, let's we do have Carter in the other studio. So shout out to Carter, who's able to grab some of the post-game press conference. So I want to hear your reaction to some of the things that are said here, Strick. Let's start with the opening statement from Coach Hoiberg.
Well, let me just start with, talking about how proud I am of this group for going out there and executing everything that we had talked about the last 48 hours. And it's a very tough environment to play in. And we knew that coming in. We talked about going out there and matching energy early. And I thought we did that. We gave them a couple plays at the basket, on some lob plays early. That's what they do. But once we got our low man in place and had a rover set on the side, got into rotation, I thought we were really crisp, and really sharp. And that's what we had to do against this team. Shots they took, they got a lot of them off, but I thought we had good spirited contests on the threes that they took. And then what we found on the offensive end of the floor is they were really doing a good job of taking away our shooters with CJ and Casey. Put the ball in these two guys' hands and let them go to work. You look at Derek, what he does. I think I can jump higher than him right now. But, when you hit the ball in the middle of the floor and he can get into the body of the defender, Kalkbrenner is one of the leading shot blockers in the country, and he's a force at the rim. We're not going over top of him, but with Derek and his experience, his ability to get his shoulder into the body, create contact, and then go up over, we thought that Derek could have some success with that, and that's what happened. And you see how much we missed him when he was out of the lineup and what he provides for our team. Just made big play after big play on the offensive end when we needed baskets. And then the charge he took. Is that your first charge you've ever taken?
It might be.
Okay, so let's try to do more of that. Yeah. But Derek was really good. I mean, huge play when we really needed it. And then, what can you say about Sam with that line that he had, just making plays in the post, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. Just did everything for our group. And one guy that didn't show up much in the box score is Emmanuel, but I thought his defense on Nemhard, who absolutely torched us a year ago, was a huge key to this win. And then Jawan's efficiency, I could go on and on, talk about it, but let these guys talk. Well, let me just start with, talking about how proud I am of this group.
There's on replay. That's Coach Hoiberg, his opening statement in the win. Did anything in particular kind of stand out to you there, Strick?
Well, what he was saying was that this particular team, and I told you about Nemhard, how he was just so effective against us before. But what he talked about is taking advantage of the situations and the mismatches, or not necessarily mismatches, but the matchups that are presented in front of you. And I think that they did a good job of that. One of the things that they wanted to do, and this is what he talked about with regard to scouting, he talked about the fact that this team, Creighton, was they like to do a certain, they have a certain style of play that they like to play. But Nebraska, you could tell they wanted to eliminate fast break opportunities, and it was part of the game plan. And the reason I know is because I could hear them talking about it. It was always get back, hurry, get back, get in the paint. It was a lot of getting back and getting matched up, because they were able to hold this Creighton team, which scores a lot of points. And that's where they do it, off of defense, off of transition, off of secondary break situations. They like to get in and find ways to score. They only had 2 fast break points. That's a win as far as the scouting is reported. They only had 2, and they thrive off of that. That's what gets the energy in the building that they talked about. That's what gets the crowd going. And they weren't able to do that tonight. And whether they challenged on the threes or whether they challenged where you saw, a couple good blocks that were important, which was recovery type blocks. That's what helped them to get this game tonight.
Let me ask you this too, because it was in the first half and in the second half. How big is it? I know you got to play a full 40 minutes to get the win, but Nebraska seemed to win the first few minutes of each half. How big was that for the victory tonight?
It's very important. And the reason being is because that's where they've struggled in the past. They've struggled putting together not only full halves, but they've struggled in coming out after half. That's why they lost some of their games that they lost early on. And your St. John's, they didn't match the intensity. So you heard Fred talking about making sure that we match their intensity. They did that tonight. And they did that because they began to execute and run the stuff that was going. They weren't rattled. They weren't bothered. They ratcheted up. They tried. Creighton tried. They tried to throw different wrinkles at them with presses and different breaks and 1-3-1s and different traps at half court. They didn't get rattled like they did before. I think CJ kind of at the end, there was a couple turnovers that could have went bad, but they recovered even though they made the mistake. They saved the opportunity by not just giving up easy buckets. So that makes it different, because that's the difference between a turnover turning into a 7 or 6 point game as opposed to a 10-12 point game.
Yeah, I was happy to see CJ too kind of redeem himself a little bit there at the end with the taking off a few more minutes off the clock and then getting it down for another assist instead of just taking the easy 2. So that was kind of nice to see as well. Again, wasn't the best night for him, not the best night for every Husker, but Nebraska got it done, and it was incredible. Let's continue to hear from the guys. We have Sam Griesel talking about this being the game he wanted the most?
Yeah, I mean, this was when I committed here. Like, this was the game that I wanted the most, obviously for a lot of reasons. I was just talking to some of the staff members that have been here for a long time, whatever, 15, 20 years, and just thinking back to players that I idolized that wore this jersey that didn't get this win, and especially in this arena. Obviously, just walking around Lincoln, everyone's just like, just beat Creighton this year, just beat Creighton this year, and it'll be nice to have a good response to that now. But I mean, yeah, it's hard to put into words. I get a little bit emotional thinking about it just because it means so much to me and so much to this group and to the state. But this is a day that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
There you have it. That's guard Sam Griesel off his great performance tonight. Again, 18 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists to go along with 2 steals for Sam Griesel, the transfer guard. And it's funny how we do that, right? Because sometimes when Nebraska loses this game and it's funny how the narrative changes. Because when Nebraska will lose this game, we'll just kind of go, well, it's a non-con game, so it's not as big. And, we all make, the fan base builds it up bigger than it is. And now that Nebraska's won and beaten a top 10 team and doing so, we're all going to celebrate like, it's the biggest thing that happened to Nebraska basketball in a long time, because it is. And so I kind of laugh sometimes when I hear that. And I understand the argument. It's the same thing with, Nebraska football. Like, yeah, Oklahoma technically wasn't a conference game, but it's a rival. I mean, and especially with Creighton, you play it year after year. They've got like this just advantage going into the game because they know that they're in your head. And now, it just feels like I can't speak for the Nebraska fan base as whole collectively, but it just feels like a big weight taken off your shoulders. What do you think about Sam describing it that way as the game that he wanted the most, despite the fact that it's not a conference game?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm telling you, that's the thing. When I got to talk to Walk before the game and look Griesel in the eye and, give him 5 and tell him, when getting a chance to do that, look them in the face, I could tell they was ready. I could tell they were hungry. I could tell that they wanted it just as much as like even myself. And to be there in that spot in that moment, it was a tremendous honor for me too, to be there, because I've been living away for so long. And so it's been disappointing. I've been hearing all the talk. I've been hearing all the stuff, and I know they have too. And I know a lot of the staff members that have been there, your Seamuses and guys like that, guys that have been connected to the program, some of the staff that are also on the medical staff, and just guys in the office in general, have understood what this moment meant to be able to do that after so long of just continuously losing. But to go in and do it in that fashion, in that manner, because you actually beat that team. Look, say what you will, say that it was an off night. No, they actually took it. They went and took it tonight, which was something that touched me deeply, because I'm seeing something different in this team that I've seen in some of the more recent teams that I've been able to kind of put my eye on, which is good for me. And I love the defensive stuff. You know me, Bach. That's where I thrive. Yeah, I love the defensive stuff. And just some things I told them, after the game was, when I got a chance to talk to someone, I said, listen, this is a new normal for you. This is a new normal. This isn't a one-off. This isn't something that just was happenstance. You are starting a new normal of what this thing should look like for you and for the program going forward, and embrace that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to see it. And just kind of feel that way. It's like, you think about Hoiberg and the excitement that was around the program when he was hired, and it's never been able to take off. And you think, I think particularly too about Derek Walker deciding to come back. Obviously didn't get any attention nationally for that decision. Locally, again, just kind of preseason was just kind of like, well, that'll be a nice piece that they can move forward. But if they continue to build on this, they can certainly have a legacy before they leave here. Let's listen. We'll get to Derek Walker here in a second. We got to get to break in a second too. Somebody off the text line did want to know, was Matt Rule in the building, and what did you think of Red Panda since you were there?
I didn't see that, but I did enjoy getting a great up close view of Red Panda. She's phenomenal, and she did her thing. But I didn't know if I saw Matt Rule there, but I wasn't paying attention. I was focused on this game getting a dub.
I know some people were interested if Matt Rule kind of new to the community. That would be a great way to kind of embrace himself and understand what goes on with Nebraska and Creighton basketball. Did Red Panda drop a bowl or something? Was it
One.
not fly? Oh, okay.
Yeah, one, but then she redeemed herself and she actually dropped it in the bucket at the end. So yeah, she just dropped one. Yeah, she did her thing.
That's good to hear that she redeemed herself at least. All right, let's take a quick break. We've got a quote to listen to from Derek Walker, and then we'll kind of set things moving forward. One final look back at this Creighton win before we're done for the night. We'll take a quick break here. We'll be back on the Hoops post-game show with Eric Strickland and myself, Jake Bachman, brought to you by Action, Electric, Heating, AC, and Plumbing. That's coming up next.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com, inviting you to join us here on 93.7 The Ticket. Every Saturday morning now in our new time, we're on from 8 to 9 with the weekly Husker Online radio show. We'll give you the latest in recruiting. We'll talk about what's going on with both football, basketball, and we'll probably share a few stories from the inside. It's every Saturday morning right here on 93.7 The Ticket. It's the Husker Online radio show from 8 to 9 a.m.
Hopcat exists at the intersection of great beer and delicious food, complemented by music, art, community, and comfort. Home to a best-in-class beer experience served by craft beer experts, guests can expect a casual, inviting local gathering place with some of the best damn burgers and fries you'll find in Lincoln. Hopcat is your pregame headquarters for basketball and volleyball all season long. Hopcat is located at 6th and P in the Haymarket. To plan your next trip to Hopcat, visit www.hopcat.com.
Guys, Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping has changed my life. I'm healthier, I'm more fit, I have more energy, and oh yeah, I've lost a bunch of weight, almost 100 pounds. Now's the time for you to take control of your health and join the Farrell's 10-week challenge. The program combines kickboxing, strength training, and nutrition to set you up for success. And ticket listeners, you can get in for half off. The next challenge starts on January 7th at both of their locations, 40th and Yankee Hill, and their brand new spot at 70th and Vine. Get all the info at fxblincoln.com. Join today. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest, quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
You spend a lot of time on your feet. At work, at the gym, on the golf course, it can be exhausting. Are your feet as comfortable as they could be? Brown Shoe Fit delivers all the sizes and widths that you can imagine, and that most other stores can't compete with. If you're looking for a specific brand, they have it. New Balance, Brooks, Keen, Clarks, Echo, Rockport, Merrill, many more. All sizes, all widths. Stop trying to squeeze into your shoes and sacrificing comfort. Find your next pair of shoes for any endeavor at Brown's Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports is quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
It's tailgate season. Why would you bounce around from place to place for all your beverage needs when you could have it all in one place? Wine, Beer, and Spirits has everything for your parties with their 3 locations in Lincoln, Grand Island, and Omaha. It's the largest liquor store in the state, and here's the best part. You can get a drink from their bar and walk around with it as you shop for all your tailgate necessities. Locally owned and operated, it's Wine, Beer, and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
All I'm saying is there's a process that has to happen, and I don't know that in year one is when you need to be worrying about how many games you need to get to satisfy the fan base. I don't think that should be part of the equation in year one. I think what we should be interested in on the outside is that he lays a solid foundation that enables the program to grow from there.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket. Back to the Ticket's basketball postgame show, featuring Derek Pearson and former Husker and 9-year NBA vet Eric Strickland on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Back here on the Hoops post game show as we wrap things up. Nebraska, a huge victor tonight, or this afternoon, actually. A little bit late and get to the Hoops post game show because we had Melby and Tom's Husker Rewind on. So thanks to those guys for also blending that in with the Hoops post game show. Either way, Nebraska gets the win 63-53 over Creighton. Number 7 Creighton, that is. So Nebraska improves to 6-3 on the season. What a monumental victory for Nebraska. Let's hear from Derek Walker, again, a guy that chose to return to Nebraska when many of his teammates last year chose not to with their extra year of eligibility. And man, has it paid off for the Huskers since he's been back. Here's Derek Walker saying this win means a lot.
Definitely. We've been making a lot of strides just as a team, and getting this win for us was really big. Like Sam said, it meant so much for the program. It meant so much for the people around us. And that's what we come out and play for every day. So getting this win, we're all happy, and we're going to celebrate this moment, but we can't wait till the next, and we can't wait to just keep improving and getting better, and showing what the world, what we're made of. Definitely.
So there you have it, Derek Walker. A huge piece to the puzzle in Nebraska, getting the victory. You did mention earlier Breidenbach. What do you think he has to still develop? He certainly has the toughness. There was a few times when he was tangling in there, I thought there might be a fight that started. So hats off to both sides for not letting it get out of hand that way and letting their emotions get the best of them. But what does Breidenbach have to do to kind of clean up his game and be able to give Derek Walker, at least have Coach Hoiberg feel a little bit better about giving Walker a spell?
Well, he seems to me right now that he's the speed of the game. He has not yet been able to catch up with it. We've got to understand that although Breidenbach, this may be his second year, this is really his first year, right? This is, being injured all year. There's just really no way to duplicate this stuff. And so, he's rushing shots. He's got both hands. I think once he learns a little bit more and he gets to a position similar to like Drew Timme, I don't think he knows how to use his body yet. He plays really straight up. He doesn't play with, leverage or low enough to be able to do like Derek Walker does with his strength to get into somebody, create space to allow that stuff. And so he plays so straight and narrow that, just think about it, like a tree. You can walk up to a tree, but a tree with branches, you have to kind of, navigate around the branches, because otherwise there's going to be some contact that's not necessarily up on the tree. But if you're straight in everything that you do, you're able to kind of close the distance on that. And then guys that are just as long as you, just as athletic as you, they can affect your shot. And I think that's what's happening with him right now. But he made a 3, so hopefully that'll give him some confidence, because he hadn't been shooting that very well at all. But yeah, so there's some things that Breidenbach, I think can still work on and grow, but mostly it's got to be him just taking care of just the speed of the game, not getting too much for him.
Yeah, it's just interesting because Nebraska, I think sometimes too, you get lost in it and think that, it's not a complete team, so they're going to have shortcomings here and there. And that's the case with almost every team. I mean, even national champions have problems. North Carolina, for example, last year didn't have a whole lot of bench depth that they go to. So if they had some foul trouble, it could really hurt them. And now North Carolina, for what it's worth is like. So that's something to keep an eye on nationally. But that's just a reminder to people too out there. You don't have to be a complete team to be a good team, and Nebraska is certainly moving in that direction. The last question of the night, Strick, is what did they do? What was the team defensive plan tonight that just caused Creighton so much problems? And is it something that Nebraska's going to stick with in general, or is this kind of a Creighton specific defense that they played?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all defense. Defense is incorporated in all, but it's the way that they do it. Normally, they would play a little bit more with pressure, forcing more to the baseline. They did that in certain instances, usually when it was on the wing or definitely in the corner. They were forcing the baseline. They were trapping in short corner situations, trying to make it difficult to pass out. A lot of their help was coming, and it was very deep, so that they didn't allow rolls or they didn't allow a lot of lob situations. And their recoveries were long, but they were okay with that because they were really firing out. And then they started Xing out, which means that the guy that was covering low, depending on where the first pass went, he would X to but they were crisp in it, Bob. That's what's the difference. It's not just knowing what you're supposed to do, but it's actually responding. That means they drilled it. I can tell by the way that they did it, the way they executed it on the defensive side. I could tell they drilled it because they reacted just like that. And it's the type of stuff that we would do at the professional level, just because we understood game plans like that or what teams were trying to do. They drilled it and they did it, and they were able to get the win by doing it. So it's different. The game plan is going to be different for there are probably going to be a lot of doubles and a lot of responses out of that, because they're going to play Trace Jackson Davis a little bit. It would be something similar when you're dealing with Edey. There's going to be some stuff that they're going to try to do, because you don't want Edey getting deep paint catches, so they're going to try to probably keep him out. So there's going to be different game plans for each of those games.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you kind of mentioned there, tough schedule coming up for Nebraska, but Nebraska doesn't mind tough anymore. They've got 3 straight wins, and they've got 2 more games this week against top 10 opponents. First, Wednesday, like you mentioned, against Trace Jackson Davis on the road with Indiana, and then Saturday at home against number 5 Purdue and Zach Edey. We'll have the Hoops post game show for that as well, but we've got to make way for Ricky Simmons and get your happy on. It's a great way to finish off your Sunday evening, great way to finish off Sunday evening for the ticket. So for Mike Melby, Tom Stevens, DP, who joined them, Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet Eric Strickland, and myself, Jake Bakoven, we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Stay tuned for Get Your Happy On coming up next.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive.